Appreciate you guys coming, man. Is gonna that video. So that video that I showed you at the beginning, just a snippet. That's usually what's gonna start playing before like we go live. So that's gonna be like the intro, right? And then as soon as that ends, it's gonna fade out, and then I'll just like introduce the show and stuff like that. And I'll probably start now that people are starting to come more consistently. I'll probably start like talking with you guys also on camera one on one, and then bringing different people on to like share different perspectives, and then bringing everybody on like halfway through the show to the end of the show to just have some back and forth, open, good dialogue. So that's kind of like my thoughts on that. I don't know what you guys think of that, but when there's a bunch of people, it's definitely fun to engage like and see everybody. But also, if you guys would be interested in like, hey, it's like me and Ryan are talking. I'm asking Ryan some questions, trying to draw out some stuff, and then Samia pops on. I'm asking her questions. Everyone's listening to the conversation, and then like halfway through the show, everybody comes on and we can just talk and ask questions. And I don't know if you guys are cool with pushback and stuff like that. That stuff is really fun to me. So, but for now, just to value you guys' time, man. We can just all hop on and just talk and stuff. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's cool.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, hold on, we get Jackie. And I'm sorry that I missed you.
What's up, Jackie?
Oh yeah, you looking like
I
we
can't
don't
hear you,
nothing.
Jackie.
Okay. People keep leaving the stream. Come back on. Anyway, man, I feel like this time we could just maybe skip introductions. Y'all see the names on the screen already. I think it's fun that you guys can just begin to learn about each other. As you guys talk
Right,
and stuff,
right,
like that's
right.
cool. You don't gotta tell your whole story or nothing like that, but we
I
definitely
like
should do
that.
that sometime. I mean, we can just jump right in. So this was one of the first topics that I actually wanted to talk about with people because I think it's super interesting. I think it obviously involves if you know the I don't know if everybody probably seen the graphic that I made or whatever, but the coexist graphic, like typically, it's like, can we all just coexist in whatever religion that people believe in or things like that? But also, if you look at the coexist logo, it like encompasses more than just like faith, if you will. It just is talking about like worldviews, right? So it's like people who identify as whatever faith, but then also people who like don't identify as any faith. Like that's part of the coexist logo. So one of the reasons I wanted to address that topic first is because I feel like it encompasses like everybody and everything. Like you don't have to be a person of faith to like have that conversation, which I think is super interesting in itself. So that was just one of and I know like people have a lot of opinions on stuff. So I love hearing opinions. I love pushback on my opinions, and I value just that authentic conversation and learning from each other. Me and Jackie have been talking about that. How it's just fun to have that environment where you can talk and you can just hear what people have to say, and you can say your piece too as well. And people don't have to always get upset or offended, but we live in a world where people don't often discuss these things. They'd rather be accusatory or argumentative, and just so yeah, that was one of the topics that I wanted to talk about. Has anyone on here like talked about this particular topic before?
Nope.
No, nobody.
In maybe not like just talk about coexisting, but I'm sure it's
Yeah,
came up, in different conversations. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. The way that I worded it, I don't know if it kind of hits the heart at what I think this conversation can lead to, but I just kind of wrote that up. It says, "Can we really coexist? Like, can we really actually coexist? Like, people talk about that, like, as in, why can't we just get along? Like, so my question is like, is that even possible? Some might say, yeah, it's possible because we're doing it now, but like, are we doing it now really? And then If we could coexist, is it optimal? And then the last part of that was, does truth have any bearing on how we should live? So I know we talked about morality before last time. So I feel like it even bleeds into that topic as well. So just want to kind of get your guys' thoughts on that there. I'll even put it up in a banner so we can remember. I
So
guess. Oh, go ahead.
I got an experience yesterday. Um, what is it called? So I went to a coffee
Oh,
shop
you
and
lagging, Ryan. I think is anybody else
for
hearing that?
real.
Or just me? No. Okay, never mind. Go ahead. It must be
So I
me.
went to a coffee shop, and the coffee shop was a record shop slash um, coffee shop. So basically, I went and looked at the menu. Once I looked at the menu,
Ooh.
she said one side was espresso, the other side was the other. So I started reading what everything said on there. The names of some of the coffees was like Hail Satan. Um, it was like the Satan, like all types of weird stuff. So I'm just like I'm looking at this and I wanted to see if I seen any additional stuff, like some information that didn't really or a title that didn't go with what I stood for, what I stand for. But then I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask this lady that works there. I'm like, what do these names mean? And she said, I don't know. They just wanted to be funny. I'm just like, what? And I'm just like, all right, well, I don't want to support this. At least you could have told me a better story than um, it's just to be funny. What? I mean, there's more there. We got to be intentional, right? With everything that we do should have a purpose. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what's their purpose? What's their agenda? And obviously, their agenda is not what I stand for. I do. I have a faith. I believe in Jesus Christ. So, that's just kind of what it is for me. I don't know about anybody else or what they would have done in my shoes, but if if that's going back to Joe's question, can we coexist? I think we just kind of got to stay in our own lane sometimes, and then not only that, while you're staying in your own lane, try to get some understanding if you can. Potentially, I attempted to see what she had to say, but she couldn't talk to me, probably because she was working and she was busy, which that's understandable. But I mean,
Yeah,
you could have gave me a better answer than just to be funny.
yeah, yeah.
But
No, that's a
I mean, does that make sense with the coexist too? Is like we just kind of, you know, when you say co, that kind of means like together.
hmm yeah,
Together, sometimes no. We all stick to what others believe in. That's basically congruent with what we believe in. So we
yeah,
kind of stick together with our own beliefs. People who believe the same things and do the same things we do. So the
yeah. That's good.
coexisting is tough.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good, Ryan. I want to go around. I'll call you guys out too, so because I can see, obviously, you guys can see me too. But I'll just kind of go in order, just briefly. The question, like, so, like, what do you think about when you hear like coexist, and then like, what does it mean to you? It can be, as brief as you want, but I feel like that's a fair question because obviously you like hear about it, so it's like whatever comes to mind, like what you kind of think the understanding of it is, and then kind of what you would associate it with. So the first person to me is Jackie. You can be as brief as you want. I just want to get everybody's voice in. Oh, she gonna act like her mic not working, y'all. She gonna act like. Okay, how about this? Hold up. How about this? Let's go. while Jackie's trying to figure out her mic issue, let's go to Damien.
So I guess for me, it's kind of like uh, man, how do I word it? Sorry, it's kind of like when you talk about can we coexist.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, I feel like race plays a big part in it, and so does your financial situation. I
Okay.
think plays a big part in it too. And the reason I say that is because, you know, growing up, I was part of a, low income family, and we weren't, obviously we weren't rich or anything, like we got by. And when we'd go around people that had money, or they would show it off, it was like, okay, we can't talk to you about the same things, because
Yeah.
you're in a situation that I wish I could be in, you know, but like we're not on the same page, right? So, and then when I say race, I mean like, not to put any race out there, but I'm Hispanic, so I know how to coexist with other Hispanics,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and when it comes to other races, sometimes they do things that me as a Hispanic, I'm like, well, that's not right, or maybe it's not right for me, but I would never do that. And so that's why I think we could coexist to a certain extent, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Yeah.
Like maybe if we're all coworkers, and you believe one thing and I believe another thing, well, we're not going to bring that up at work because we're just here to work and get paid. So we're coexisting. But
Mm-hmm.
now
Agree.
outside of work, if you go home and you believe that you have to pray before every meal, and I go over to your house and I'm like, well, I don't do that, so now we're not coexisting. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay. Appreciate it, Damien. I got next, Samia.
I was hoping I had more time.
Oh, we
um,
can skip you. You can skip you if you want. It don't. I mean, it
I'm
don't
kind
have
of
to be. It can be as brief as you want to. So
okay. Well, I'm kind of
it's just
blank. Yeah, I'm kind of blank. So maybe you can help me. But there's a thing that's I just asked my friend. Maybe I text. It's freedom from religion and freedom. And I'm forgetting what's the other one. And but it's like freedom of for or from religion and
freedom of.
is it of religion? And I think that like correlates very so like example, uh if you have a photographer and she's a Christian and she does weddings and like I think by law you she couldn't deny doing like a gay marriage
Right.
uh if she worked for a company or whatever what other their values are, but as a believer gay marriage is not correct. um so you would be kind of not condoning that behavior by supporting this, but in a way you kind of would be. Uh, and so it goes into like, um, I know in Russia, they have freedom like from religion. I think I'm wording this right. But basically, like you can't wear any religious shirts. You can't
Mm,
speak about it. You cannot. So it's completely like you cannot have any type of religion period. You can do it in your home, you can do it secretly, you can do it, but you can't press that forward. And so then that kind of goes back to coexisting because here they're like, whatever your religion, just you can have, but then you can't really like represent it.
mm-hmm.
And as a disciple of God, my job is to spread the gospel. My job is to wear things that maybe are great conversation starters, maybe are a little sign someone's having a bad day. So they're like, and they see that, oh, Jesus loves you. And it's a slight reminder, like, but from there, they just completely eliminated it, And so it kind of goes into, I guess that's just to touch briefly on that. That would be where I think I kind of struggle, because at what point are you respecting them but compromising your belief to
That's good.
do something just out of quote unquote love or respect for that person? So I think that's where I definitely don't have an answer for it. It's a conversation I had like about a month ago with somebody, and I kind of just was like, man, this is what would I do if I was a photographer or a cake maker? What would I do if I was this or that?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that's kind of where I would go with that conversation a little bit.
No,
I
that's
have a
good.
quick point to
Yeah, go
add
ahead,
to
bro.
that. So for my situation, right, I could have, like, the drinks, the coffees and espresso sounded really nice. It sounded good. So I was like, well, it sounds good, but am I going to sacrifice what I believe in to buy and support anything in here? So that's why I left. And that's a statement of just kind of standing firm in what you believe in. And then, you can still coexist, because I still went in there. I looked at the records a little bit, and then I looked at the coffee, and then I was like, well, you know, I looked at the names and I'm like, what does this stuff mean to them? So asked her, she couldn't converse, and that's okay, understandable. But I just said thank you, put the menu down. I wasn't like, I didn't get, you know, hostile or anything. Like, what is this? Are you guys worship Satan? I didn't do that. So because my actions were the way they were, I was coexisting. We were coexisting, and still respecting each other's beliefs, but understanding that in this way, I'm going to serve what I serve, and I'm not going to support otherwise. But that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I know people are having some trouble. They're gonna come back on. Becky, would you like to share any of your thoughts? Okay, we got back on. Or is your mic not working?
Mine is it? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. Back
Okay.
on. Uh, yeah, Becky said I think you can coexist to an extent without compromising beliefs. I think that's definitely true. I think that kind of goes along with what Samia was saying. You definitely can coexist to an extent without compromising beliefs. I definitely think where it gets really interesting though is where like everyone's standard of coexisting is different, right? And we talked about this before in terms of like to what standard or by what standard are you appealing to? So like one person could say, um, this is not coexisting for me when you do this, right? But then another person might say, well, my faith calls me to this, or my lack of faith, lack of belief, or whatever, how I was raised, it calls me to this. So I feel like you're not coexisting. So I think it gets very interesting, right? Because who defines what the definition of coexisting is, right? Is this something that fluctuates with society? Is it something that can be decided on like relationally? Is it limited to relationally? But like if you extend it out to society, can you even do it? And that's what I think it gets to the next part of it. Like, is it optimal? Like, can you even do it at an optimal level if there's so many opinions, or I think the term is um, chefs in the kitchen or whatever? Like, how do you even know what that is? Like, what are your guys' thoughts on? Is it a personal thing in terms of like a relational level, like one person to another person, like whatever they agree on, it's coexisting. But then when you bring in other parties, it's like how do you work through that?
So on like a surface level, we're all agreeing that we can coexist on a surface level.
Yeah, I kind of think
On a,
that like on a surface level, but then it would but then would that really even be coexisting like in the truest form, right? Like is it actually optimal to coexist? And then I guess that follow-up question to what you guys were saying is like how do you even define it? Like I know like people have said, like live harmoniously, respect others and be kind. Um, and even though that sounds very simple, right? Like respect others, be kind. But here's why I think it's very challenging because what someone might define respectful, another person may define it disrespectful. And I'm not talking about like surface stuff. So I think on the surface, people can coexist on the surface. But then when you get into like weightier issues, it's like, well, it's actually not respectful for you to push this belief or a lack of belief on a person. And I think as soon as you break through the surface level of coexisting, I think it doesn't work. I think it absolutely doesn't work because how can you actually even define it where it's like it sounds simple, right? Like be kind, like respect others. And some people would say to be kind is to do the Pledge of Allegiance in school, right? In elementary school. But some people would say actually that's not very kind, it's not respectful because of how I view things. So that's just like a small example of like people argue over the Pledge of Allegiance. People argue over, well, should there be prayer in school and things like that. So at a surface level, like it sounds good. Like let's all just love each other. But then when you get to like past the words, I think it starts to crumble. So what's your guys' thoughts on that? I'm not saying that I know this perfectly, but these are just kind of my thoughts. I think it begins to crumble when you start to have to define terms. I don't know if Jackie's still having audio issues. She just be scared to talk, but we'll go to her if she's not having any issues. Oh, she faking y'all. She faking y'all. Let's go to let's go to Samia.
what so what am I
Yes,
supposed to
yeah.
answer?
So on a surface level, it works. I think. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you would agree to that. You can give me pushback, but as you begin to define, like, what does it mean to live harmoniously? What does it mean to respect others? What does it mean to be kind? Like that. Those are like, those words are. We all know what that is, but then once you go under that surface, what do you see there? Because I think you have to start defining terms after you kind of set that standard of here's the standard of coexisting. Do this, 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 and this. But then do those things need to be defined or not in your perspective?
Yeah, definitely I agree with the surface level. It's easy to, uh, you have coworkers that aren't and are, you have uh, people you deal with on a day-to-day basis that are and aren't. You even have probably friends that are and aren't, but they're just more so level up. Probably a friend and not like a best friend or someone you would go to. Um, so then if we're actually looking up like the coexisting, what you said, like respect others and love others. I think if we go on the love side, to dive into that, to love someone would be to want to share the gospel because when he does come down, did you really love that person enough that you'd be willing to leave them behind? Um, on the respecting, it kind of correlates with love too, but you respect their life and you hope that they live it to the fullest, but are they really living it to the fullest if they don't have Jesus in their life and God in their life? Um, I don't remember what the other ones were, but it kind of just goes down to like if God is the center of your life and in order to have the most joyful moments, to have the most peaceful moments, to have the less anxiety, the mental health decrease, the everything. If you know that and you kind of have answers to the test, then would you not share that with other people? And there would be a lot of backlash and a lot of confrontation that you would get with that if you are doing those things. And so, are you really going to coexist if you're on that deeper level? I
Hmm.
would probably say no.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, and I think like I would, yeah, I feel much of what you said and would agree. I think too, when you get to like so coexisting, right? Like how, even from the perspective of someone who like may not believe in any God, any deity, like that's fine, right? But from their perspective, even like they even people, everyone, no matter what you believe, has to define what terms mean and what they are, right? Because I mean, you see people who like, you know, people who are not even sure what they believe, they still define terms, right? So I think it's interesting because it's like no matter where you are in life, whether you have a faith or not, and that gets to like the coexisting because it's encompassing e- everyone from all walks of life, right? Um, people would adhere to something. Like we all believe something, whether it's like the golden rule, right? Treat others how you would want to be treated. Like that's something that people would say. I think most of the world would say that's how you would coexist, right? But then when you start to peel back that onion, if you will, it's like, well, not everyone is going to be want to be treated the same. Not everyone is offended by the same things. For example, I said this earlier, but like, not everyone is offended by the national anthem in school. Not everyone is offended by gender neutral bathrooms. Not everyone is offended by um, someone wanting to pray in school. Not everyone is offended by these things. So that's why I think it gets really hard because everyone has different views and opinions. I got Derek in here. Derek finally got it working. I don't know if you've been able to. Have you been able to hear the show so far? Oh, Derek, I don't know. Your mic's not working either. Jackie must be over there with you, man. Messing up your mic.
Can you hear me?
Uh oh. Who's that?
Wow.
Wait, are you? So are you guys in the same room? Is that why it's getting that feedback?
Me?
Yeah, are you
I
in the
don't know
room with
why
somebody?
it's getting that feedback on mine.
That phone? Okay, Aaron. Okay, got a question. I'll put that up in a minute. Mm, okay, a little pushback there. Okay, I like that. Let's see. Well, while Jackie's going, I want to hear from someone who like. I want to hear from someone else who doesn't like. If you would say if you're here, even if you would say like, man, I don't have a particular faith. I just kind of try to live good, do good. Like I want to hear like your perspective on these things.
So that I wouldn't say I don't have like, like a particular faith,
Yeah.
because I obviously, I grew up in like Catholic, and we went to church, and my parents always talked to us about, God and the church and all that to a certain extent. As an adult, like it's hard for me, to get there 100%, I should say. But when you talk about uh like on the surface, I can agree that everybody can coexist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On the surface, obviously we have to be around people every day, whether it's work or even just going to the store or whatever. You're coexisting with people. But on a personal level, that's where coexisting for me personally gets hard, because I can't sit there and be in the same place as somebody that is just not um oh, what's the word I'm looking for? We're just too different, too, like, we got none of the same, like, thoughts, none of the same ideas, none of, like, the conversation is just not gonna happen. And that's not, like, just with religion or faith or nothing. I'm talking that's like in, like, with everything. You know, I've had coworkers in the past that, yeah, when we're at work, we talk about work and, you know, whatever. Hey, I was on this job site and this guy did this, or one time I was on this job site, but it's always work, right?
Yeah.
And so, but then, like I said before, that same person will be outside of work, and if I see them, they'll talk to me about fishing or hunting, or I was working on my truck and da 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 da, and I'm just like, I don't care, because I don't fish and I don't hunt and I don't work on trucks.
Hmm.
So it's like, why, and this is just me personally, why am I having a conversation with you? Why am I coexisting with you if none of that matters to me? And not to be, mean or anything. It's
Nah,
just
you
one of
mean
those things. It's just one of those things that it's like, if we can find the same interest, okay, yeah, cool, we'll have a conversation. But if you're talking to me about something that I know nothing about, then for me, it's like I just feel like it's a waste of time.
yeah. And I think too, like coexisting goes a lot deeper than just like the whole faith aspect of it. Cause I think regardless of like someone's beliefs, I think where it starts to but when people start to butt heads is when like when you're trying to like tell people about anything, right? I'm not even talking about like a faith. I'm saying you're just trying to tell them to drink more water, live healthier. It's like even there's a level of coexisting where you butt heads because it's like maybe you're not talking to them about what you believe about anything, about any higher power, God, whatever you want to call it. Like you're not talking to them about anything. You're just talking to them about like, oh, maybe you hung out with them at the bar one time and you seen how they was treating their boyfriend or girlfriend, and you're like, why you treat her like that, man? And they get offended, like beyond just like uh, the ultimate thing where it's like I think you even just see pushback in, and like you said, in the workplace, uh, like you said, on the job, at the gym, wherever you are. Like I think coexisting goes a lot deeper than just like the faith aspect of it or the lack of faith aspect, religion aspect of it. I think it kind of bleeds into everywhere where it's like when people start to question why you do the things you do, and it's easy to get offended. Like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What's wrong with that? You know what I mean? I
Right.
think Jackie's
So,
Jackie's mic might be working now, but go ahead, Damien.
and see, here's my thing is, when it comes to religion or faith, I think that's coexisting in its own way, because me personally, I mean, I can sit here and ask probably 1,000 questions about, you know, God and religion and faith, and don't get me wrong, a lot of my questions would be why, but it's still coexisting,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
if I feel like if me and you had a one-on-one conversation, I think our conversation wouldn't get, like nobody would get mad to, like,
right.
nobody would get mad, but it would just be so interesting, because, like, it's that coexisting part of it.
Yeah,
And
super interesting.
what I was trying to say earlier was, you know like, if I didn't care about faith or religion, then that's when it wouldn't be coexisting, because I'm just gonna put you off to the side and say, I don't want to hear that,
Yeah,
But even me asking questions, that's a form of, coexisting,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Give and take relationship for sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, it's definitely a give and take like relationship. I feel like it kind of comes down to like your relationship with the person too, to some degree.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you're, I don't know how to say this exactly, but I feel like it's easier to coexist with somebody if you have a working relationship with them already
Mm-hmm. Sure.
versus like if I don't have a working relationship with you, I'm less likely to be open with you and less likely to hear what you have to say or to coexist with you.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
good. That's good.
I'm sorry I
Uh,
missed like half of the conversation.
no, you good, man. We just working through the technical difficulties. We're gonna get there. Uh, I'm wondering. We're gonna give her one last time to see if her mic is working, y'all, and then we just gonna write her off as yeah, she faking. She
All right. Can you hear me? Is it
There
echo
it is.
ugly? No echo.
No
yeah,
echo.
we got you.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I also missed a big part of the conversation. Was trying to be a IT tech myself, but I can't figure this out. So, but back to that. I don't know. I missed a big portion of it, but I think you can definitely get into like the religious aspect of it. But I also agree with Joe. There's also a different level. That doesn't. For example, I have a situation where I had a friend that we both didn't goes back to touching base to one of Joe's other podcasts that he did on abortion. Okay. So I had a friend that we've been friends, for years, and we did not agree on the topic of abortion whatsoever. I had my view and they had their view. Um, this friend of mine had like a very strict, like we both were very stubborn about our views, right? In the end, we had good dialogues. We weren't offensive to each other. We really tried to just understand each other's point of views and why we
Yeah,
thought the way that we thought. Most of what we realized was the reason that why we had the certain mindset or the certain idea about that specific topic was because of our experiences, our personal experiences. And in the end, I was actually able to get her on my side. So yes, I believe we can coexist because I think if I never had that dialogue with this friend, she would probably still have the same mindset that she did before. And now, because of the dialogue that we had, we talked maybe not that long ago, a few months ago, and she had brought up the fact that wow, like I can't believe that I really used to think the other way, that I could not see your point of view if it wasn't for the fact that we sat there and had that nice conversation. So I definitely think that it goes beyond, religion and stuff. But I do think that people can coexist. I think that you kind of push people away, like how some people mentioned when you try to impose, like try to persuade people too much. You try to impose your views on others. That's never gonna work. If you try to sit there and just explain why you see the things that or why you think the way that you do, that's different. That gives somebody another insight of like the reason or why, not just like, oh, they're trying to preach to me, oh, they want me to think the way that they want. So I mean, I think that we can coexist. I think it all depends on the specific individuals, whether they're willing to actually learn. And because I think life in itself is all a learning process. We're always learning every single day. So whether we want to intake information and what we want to do with it, that's up to every individual. So yeah.
yeah.
I
That's
think
good.
it requires a lot of humility too.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Just from
yeah.
both sides, right? Because like
Mm-hmm.
realistically, the only way you're going to be able to coexist with one another is if you are humble enough to understand that, like, okay, maybe I don't see it this way, but I still care about this person, so I want to at least try to see where they're coming from, right? And so I think humility is a big part of it too. Just
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people hold back on, having difficult conversations because, they're so set or they've had this idea of a certain thing. So having somebody else contradict that or kind of go against
Mm.
they've always believed in is like, it's kind of like, yeah, going to war. Like, you think that you're going to sit there and have to argue with somebody, but if the two individuals that have different views sit down and actually, like you said, have humility and sit there and listen and want to understand each other, I think there's definitely a good chance of coexisting. So
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's really good. That's I think it's a good segue to like, so the last part of my kind of thoughts and question around kind of this whole topic is like,
Can I
have to
ask
read
a
it
question
again.
real quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just with the conversation with Jackie's friend.
Yeah.
So, do you think you coexist with her now because she
Mm.
she changed her mind and you persuaded her? Or do you think if she stayed on her belief on complete opposite, would you guys still be coexisting at the level that you do? Or would you have seen that friendship teeter and maybe become more surface level than what it is now? I don't know if I worded that right, but
yeah, that's a good question. And
Dang, that's a
I
really good question.
I believe that we would still be able to coexist in a way, but yeah, it might be more surface level.
Mm.
Just
not to
because
call you out. I'm sorry you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
used that as
no,
an
no,
example. Not.
we
no,
like
I
it. No, we good.
wouldn't have really thought about it, but it that I really can't say for sure, but I don't know. That's a good question. I really can't say. So if she would have not been persuaded, I don't think that I knew that her views for a while already, and that didn't change our relationship, our friendship. So I don't think it would really like deteriorate our friendship more than it. I always knew her views, but I think when the Roe versus Wade whole situation happened, everybody
Yeah,
got a lot more intense about it. So
yeah,
people speaking more about it, and that's how we came to the situation of actually having that dialogue. So I don't necessarily think that I would have been like not as friendly to her, or our friendship would have deteriorated or anything like that. But that is a good question, because if it was on another topic now, I don't know if I would say the same. So
yeah. That was a really good question. Yeah,
I
Yeah.
find
that was
it
a really good question.
interesting too, just to kind of segue off of that. Like, how often do we get upset about something that we have no control over?
Mm.
Right? Like, you mentioned how, like, the Roe versus Wade discussion, like, affected your friendship, but, like, that decision, neither one of you had any control over that, right? So, like, I feel like a lot of times in life, stuff like that we have no control over affects how we view each other and how we like interact with each other and in our friendships and things like that. And it's like, why? Like, why do we feel the need to allow that to affect us as much as it does, I guess?
Yeah, I think the
I
go
got
ahead,
something to
Ryan.
say real quick.
All right, go ahead, Ryan.
yeah, go ahead.
So here's what I think is like at the end of the day is like the good thing about us human beings is we have choices. You know, we can make our choice, right? And that's what we have control over, what we have power over. So I think certain people have choices to be friends with people at a surface level. Some people decide to make friends off of deep levels. Me, I don't like surface level friends. I'm like a person that's super deep. You know, I want to connect and be around someone that's deep where I know who you truly are. So here's the thing too is this is for all of us, right? It's based on laws. You know, that's why we're coexisting, because we all know that, you know, there's certain things we can't do to people. So we decide to coexist with one another. We know that if you're at your job, you're coexisting, like Damien mentioned, you're at your job, you're coexisting. You know this person sucks and don't believe in the same things you don't believe in, but they also suck at their job. But you're not necessarily going to go to that extent and, you know, do something because you know that there's either consequences or you're going to have to deal with confrontation on a higher level or a larger scale. But yeah, let's go back to the definition of the two things. So like co is mutual together. And then you have like exist. I've seen exist, it says like live in adverse conditions. That's one example of it. And then there's another example is saying just to live kind of like as a human being. So there's two definitions that exist, and that exist could, you know, say that we are living in adverse conditions because we're existing against people who don't want to coexist, people who kill people, people who, you know, stuff like that. So it's like, you know, I just wanted to break it down real quick, but
Yeah.
that's it.
No, that's good. That's good. I think laws are a good uh, transition and segue into like kind of the point that I really think drives this thing is, so the question was, can we really coexist? Like, can we actually do it? And then the is it possible? And then is it optimal? So the optimal is like, is it optimal? Like, is it truly the best way for us to live by coexisting? Like, whatever standard you may think, or whatever standard like the world put to that term, like, is that actually optimal? So what I think really pulls like this out is the question of, does truth have any bearing on how we should live? Like, for example, the different laws that have been passed, whatever the case is, like, these are these are especially laws, which I think is fascinating because these are things that I wouldn't say all of society agrees with, right? But like that people are deeming as, this is true. Like, it's true that it's wrong to smoke marijuana in this state, and if you do it, you're going to be arrested. Like, it's true that murdering people, we don't like that, so we're going to arrest you, right? Like, does truth have? Oh, I see Jackie raising her hand. Go ahead. Oh, here you go again with the mic. Like, here, let me see something.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so it's working when your phone is on? Okay, I got you. Okay. My bad.
So I kind of wanted to go back to
Oh, go
Derek
ahead.
really quick. Well,
Yeah.
just he mentioned like why do we let things that we can't control you know, affect us or get in the way or whatever. Same thing to kind of goes, it connects with the laws as well. It's, if you think about it, people are passionate about things that affect them. The laws are there, and usually the laws affect, if not a big group of people, it affects somebody. It affects a certain community. It affects a certain type of person, right?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, going back to why do we let things, you know, get in between people? Because we're passionate about things that affect us. for example, you know, when it comes to laws too, you go against things that are not gonna serve you right, you know, that you feel like go against you, your beliefs, or your rights. So I don't know, I just kind of want to put that out there. I think that it really, the where it gets kind of fiery and people get passionate about things, it's because they it's something that's going to affect them or somebody they love usually. So
So I think in reality, it's kind of like I mean, it is human nature to uh I wouldn't say let things bother us, things that we can't control bother us, but I think it's more of a it's human nature to talk about things that yeah, we know like we can't control it. And but I mean, it's like okay, if we can't control it, are we just not supposed to talk about it? I think that's just human nature. Like we have to talk about things, right? And then I guess I have a question. Do you guys think that if something drastic were to happen, are we gonna be able to coexist with each other as, you know, a country? Like let's say, or even you know, as the human race, you know, let's say there's a nuclear war, you know, and everybody's just, you know, everybody bombs everybody. We as a human race, are we going to be able to coexist with each other and say, okay, maybe there's no more laws or no more, you know, the United States just doesn't exist no more. It's just to each their own. Are we going to be able to coexist with each other and start building again and start, you know, living life again? I think that's when you say truth. I think it's like, I think something like that has to happen in order to really find out if we can coexist with each other and not just on a surface level. Does that make sense?
I think it's
Yeah.
a lot harder to coexist in a certain situation like that, mainly because let's use your example as like a nuclear war. Like at that point, I feel like everybody's like natural instinct and natural tendency is to gonna go into fight or flight response, right? And so it's a lot harder for
Hmm.
people to think clearly when they're in that state of mind. And so I feel like it would be a lot harder for people to coexist in a situation like that.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
agree.
I
here's my
got
next
something.
question.
Mainly based on
I got one more question.
Go ahead.
So
Oh, go ahead. Go
let
ahead.
let's say okay, let's say there it's not nuclear war. Let's say
Yeah.
it's what is it called, the rapture, when Jesus comes
Oh, yeah,
down and
yeah, yeah.
okay, let's say, you know, and I'm not trying to say there's a certain religion or nothing,
Nah,
but
you are.
let's
I'm just
say
playing. I'm just playing.
but let's say, you know, Catholic Jesus comes down and everybody sees it. There's 100% proof that it's Catholic
Yeah.
Jesus. Now, can we coexist with each other and say,
So,
okay, you're not Catholic, and you're not Catholic, but I am, but now you have the proof. Can we coexist now and believe that it is Catholic Jesus?
and
You
so
know
also,
what
yeah.
I
can we
mean?
coexist with Catholic Jesus as
Okay.
well?
So this is really good. This is like okay. I'm gonna I'm gonna say this, and I'm just gonna let y'all kind of go back and forth. You guys already know I'm super opinionated, just like everybody else. But so this is what I think a good segue to like when I say does truth have any bearing on how we should live? What I mean by that is if you look up, I'll try to put it on the screen. Let me see. Um, hold on real quick. I'll see if I can. Is everyone familiar like with the coexist logo? With the logo? Um, so what I mean by that is like, yeah, okay, Ryan. So basically, it has like the different world views, and it spells out coexist. Um, what I'm getting at is with the question, does truth have any bearing on how we should live? I'm really curious on what, because people see, you see the bumper sticker, you see that word, but it's like in your guys' perspective, um, really interested to hear you, Damien, and definitely Jackie, from what I know. And then I know Annan put a question down there. We can get to that too. But I'm interested in hearing what you think about the idea of coexisting with the different worldviews. Do you see that as like, does truth have any bearing on that? Like, is any of that true? Do you guys see each of those worldviews as having some truth? Like, does that even matter? Because you think about it, it's like, hey, this person identifies or believes this way. Have you ever been curious about like, well, like, is it even true? Like, I think when you look at coexisting and religions, it's like, oh, that person believes this, and that like helps them through life. Is what I think the coexist gets at. That person believes this, and it just kind of helps them live like how they want to live. I think there's a much deeper layer that we all adhere to and live, especially by laws, right? Because there's law against killing and murdering. I mean, people believe like that's, it's true that that's wrong. So what I'm saying is like, have you ever thought about whatever religion that it may be talking about a worldview? Like, is it even true, or do you guys see each of those worldviews as like none of them can be 100% true? Some could have pieces of truth, and if so, like how does that impact how we live? Like like what is true about coexisting? Like, does that make sense? Are any of those true? Like, do some just have parts of truth? And like why do you think that, if that's the case? I definitely want to hear from Jackie. I want to hear from Damien on that.
So
Like, have you ever thought about like, is that even true? Like, whatever they believe, or do you just see religion as like, yeah, that just helps them through life? It's just a feel good thing. Like,
so
or is there
so
actually
here's
validity to those claims?
here's the way that the best way that I can try to picture it. When I was in what do you call them? The classes that we had to take to get our first communion and our confirmation done as a Catholic. Uh, the one of the teachers said he drew a box on the chalkboard. He drew a square on the chalkboard and he filled it in a quarter of the way. And he said, this is what Muslims believe." Then he filled it in halfway and he said, "This is what uh,
Okay, okay.
whoever believes." And then he
Mm-hmm.
filled it in the full. He colored it all the way in, and he said, "This is what Catholics believe." And that moment, I'm like, okay, but how do you know? And the response that I got was, "Oh, you're just trying to be a smartass and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "No, it's a serious question. How do you know?" So I think from there, it was kind of like, you know, what if I go to uh another religion, that tells me the same thing. Well, we believe this, and they fill in the whole box, you
Yeah.
know.
How do you
So,
know? Yeah.
so how do you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where, when you say, can we all coexist when it comes to truth, another example, you know, somebody said that, like, where was it? In Afghanistan, they have the right to kill their wife for whatever reason, because whatever. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, if you came to America and did that, that you can't,
Mm-hmm.
but to them, that's their truth, that's their belief, So I think it does have a big part in it, is like, I think you can't know, like the actual truth, and then to come and say like, can we coexist? I think it just goes back to, yeah, we can on a surface level,
Hmm.
because because of the beliefs, and because of somebody somewhere is gonna say, no, that's not right. This is right because this is what I was taught. You know?
Yeah. So the question is, it's really interesting because it's like how I view the coexisting thing and like people, the different world views. It's like the world views didn't spring out of nowhere, right? It wasn't like um, here's this um, like here's this whole thing, and it just came from nothing. Like you know what I mean? Like for example, in any worldview came from somewhere. Like it wasn't just, hey, that's actually like not a thought out there. It's just something that is just it just poof, and now we have it. Where it's like I don't know, like it wasn't just poof, and people just randomly started believing in Jesus in terms of like, and I think it's interesting, especially when it comes to like different religions, where it's like I guess a question what I would have for you guys in terms of the truth aspect of it is, do you see certain religions as they just believe something that like didn't happen?
Do you think that you believe that things didn't just poof out of nowhere because you have a belief?
No, I would say a lot of I would say a practical reason why I don't believe things poof out of anywhere. This is gonna sound really elementary, but I think it makes perfect sense. So obviously you know what a painting is, right? Obviously you know. Well, how do I know there was a painter? Because the painting exists. The painting doesn't paint itself. Same thing with a building. How do you know that there was a builder? Like, because buildings don't build themselves, right? So I
So when
know that things don't just things as we know don't just poof out of anywhere. Like if I were to tell you guys this chair right here, no one designed this chair. It just was here constructed and no one designed it. You'd be like, you're absolutely crazy. Someone designed this chair because things get designed. So like when it comes to faith and religion, when people are like, hey, I believe that there's a God out there, and not even I'm not even adhering to one faith is what I mean by this example is um, like science, for example, would say, from what I know about science, it would say Big Bang, right? To me, it doesn't make any sense because it has to come from something. Like when I look at the earth and everything around, if I can agree that this phone has to be created and the earth and the stars and oxygen and and the atmosphere and everything is way more complex than this device in my hand. There's no way that I'm convinced that things just poofed. Now I will say how I was brought up definitely have has some impact on what I believe for sure, like the things that I was taught. Just like in elementary school, like I was taught at a young age not to smoke because it'll turn your teeth yellow and it'll turn your fingernails yellow. Like I was taught that. So then I just believed it. I was like, well, it's probably true. They're teaching me these things. I'm believing it. So I think for me, it's definitely part of what I was raised on and what I was taught to believe, but also just like experience and what you can see. Like all of us see the world around us. We see magazines and tables and houses and Samir's writing with a pencil. Like even that pencil had to be created. Like it didn't just poof out of anywhere and she just like, I'm grabbing this pencil. I know how to use it. It's like that pencil was made. So if the
get where
pencil had to be made,
I
if
get
the
where
pencil had to be made, how could Earth not be made? Is kind of how I feel. Does
I
that make sense?
when I think about coexisting though, I like how it, how we're kind of talking about not just one religion. And I've
Yeah,
kind of spoken to you about this before too, how I've been trying to explore other religions.
yeah,
I do not claim a religion, any specific religion, but I was raised Catholic as well. And then for a certain part of my childhood, I was also in Christian churches. So I was, I kind of got to experience both Christians, how Christians are, and then how Catholics are. And there's things that I will say that I do feel like I believe in a God. I don't think that I believe in a specific God because I have a lot of questions as well. But like Damien said, I did my first communion. I was baptized, all of that stuff. But and even being, I used to go to church every Sunday. I used to go to church school or whatever every Wednesday. But the thing that I like about exploring all these other religions and the things that, or what I see, at least when I think about all of this, is the fact that every religion or every community that believes in certain religions were like, they Christians didn't have Catholics, or like they or like Muslims, they don't have Catholics, they don't have Jews and stuff. So all those people have been for generations and generations believing in this one thing or in this one religion, and
Yeah.
that's what's gotten that community through everything. So I think it's very difficult for me to really stick to a certain religion, just because, to me, I question, if this religion is right, then how did that community in that society live with a different religion? How did they,
Mm.
and they're not, that society did not die off. That community did not die off. They're still going and going and going, but they believe in a completely different thing than this other religion does, or this other community. So, I think, to me, that's one of the reasons why I do believe people can coexist, because I think every community and every person has something they can share with another individual, that like, we're always, like I said, we're always learning. So I think that every community has something that they can share. I don't necessarily believe that there's just one God and one God created everything, because of the differences in all the religions that there are, especially to nowadays.
Yeah.
Like Anand said, he mentioned Mormonism, and Scientology too. I mean, there's a lot of things, just, I mean, yeah, things are created, but at the same time, somebody could have created that specific religion just because they wanted to believe in something. They chose to believe in this higher being, and that's what got them maybe through tough times. I feel like when people kind of seek a higher being or something like that, most of the time it's when you're going through things, or I feel like that's when people kind of get more, at least from my experiences, or what from I've seen, from people kind of seek the guidance of a higher being or a certain religion because they're trying to find answers to something.
Mm.
And I feel like that's where people kind of go to straight to, is a religion.
Yeah.
um
That's good.
I have
That's
a
good, Jackie.
question.
That real quick,
yeah.
Ryan. I'm gonna let you. I'll let you get in, Ryan, real quick. That's
Yeah.
good, Jackie, with what you said. But what's interesting too, like, so when I started to study like different religions, I became fascinated with the question of like by what standard, and then like how do you know? So like with Mormonism, for example, and that said it's kind of one of those poof religions. But when you trace it back, not really is it like a poof religion in the sense of like uh we like it's actually traced to who started it. A guy named Joseph Smith actually started it, and he claimed that these things happened, right? So it's like it's fascinating to me the worldview aspect of it all, whether someone believes in a God or not. Is like in terms of Mormonism, like he made this claim, and now many like millions of people like follow like his teachings, right? So he made a claim, but it's fascinating to know like is it even true? So it's like is it even true what he's saying? And not even just to like help him through life. It's like he made this claim and now he's saying how people ought to live. And a group of people are like, yeah, that's true. I'm gonna believe that way. I'm gonna live that way, and not actually even know like how it started, where it came from,
That's
what
how
it even
Charles Manson
means.
started, isn't it?
Say that again. Sorry.
Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
Isn't that his name? The dude that like got a whole bunch of girls to like that he was like a type of god, and then was like having kids with them, and they were murdering people and stuff. You
Oh
know?
yeah. Yes, and yeah. I do remember that.
You
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do. I think like what's fascinating about it is we all, even before you get to like the religion aspect of coexist, we all like adhere to some type of truth where it's like hurting people is wrong, lying is wrong, you know what I mean? But like how do you even know? How do you even know that's wrong? Uh is it just I could ask you, like he would ask me, do I believe what I believe just because I was taught that way? Like, do you think you believe that like lying and stealing from the bank is wrong because you've been taught that way, or is it actually wrong?
I believe
Like
that. I
like
believe.
why like why
Yeah.
would why would robbing a bank be wrong outside of what you were taught?
Not necessarily. I don't. So that's kind of like an extreme view of robbing a bank. Probably an adult would know that's not something you would do.
Right.
Um, but I think if
What
I
if I
was
want what if
if
I
I
just want to?
probably poor, if I was poor and my parents were sitting there breaking into houses or stealing stuff, and
Yeah.
I was seeing this as a child because they were trying to provide for me, I probably would follow in the footsteps thinking that it was okay. Um, but because of the fact that I was taught not to do things like that, I know I know better. And it kind of goes back to like the morality of things. I think experiences shape who we are and shape our beliefs and our ideas in the end.
So can
Yeah.
I it kind of goes back, and actually Christina, your wife, showed me the YouTube video of and I'm gonna blank on his name, which I kind of don't want to remember his name because he's he killed a bunch of people
Oh, this is
and
gonna be a
ate
good one
them,
right here.
but I don't remember his name. What's his name?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay, so we go to Jeffrey Dahmer. So I was sent this video. I watched it, and he actually at the end of his life gave he gave his life to Christ, but he was an atheist, and he said uh, one of the reasons why he didn't see the wrong of why he killed people is because if we came from nothing and we're going nowhere, then uh, why does it matter? And whose morality? I may be explaining this wrong too, but like
No,
whose
you're doing good.
and whose why does it matter if I kill a person or if I don't kill a person? Because we came from nothing, we are nothing. And at what point am I following like who's moral? Like, why is it good? Why is it bad to kill somebody if we're nothing? And why is it bad? Vice versa, Joe. If you want to get more into it,
No, that's
but
good. No, that's good because I think like it begins to be uncomfortable to talk about because naturally we adhere to like some type of goodness value. We won't say always where we get it from, right? We'll say like, well, because like society, live well, be kind to people. But as you like peel back that onion, what is really interesting about Jeffrey Dahmer is like his worldview. So he, from his worldview, would say that no God existed. None of us were created. We just happened. So, like, from his perspective, if we just happened, how could there be a moral anything? Like, if you just happened and you're like the fish of the sea and you're like lions, like, no one is like, hey, lion, you can't eat that gazelle. Like, like if that's actually true, then in his mind, he's like, what's wrong with it? And I think a perspective outside of a creator, it begins to be very challenging once you slow down because I think if you rush into it, you're like you start to adhere. What I think is very interesting. This guy wrote a book. He said it's called Stealing from God, right? So like we take that morality like of a perfect person, a perfect God, a perfect creator, and we say, ah, this is what's right. So we're getting it from somewhere, even if we say, hey, it's not this particular God, we're getting it from somewhere. But if you let go of that hand and say, well, what am I even grabbing at? How do I know what I'm grabbing at is true? And if I can't grab at anything, then logically, like anything goes. Like from his mind, he's like, how am I wrong? If if we just came to be, which I think is fascinating. I think initially people would push back and like disagree with it, of course, like, oh, it's wrong to kill people because, and then you appeal to some emotive thing, which is good, but like outside of the emotion aspect of it, for him, like how in his mind, like how am I wrong?
But I think
And
it's
go
I
ahead.
think we're also very privileged in America to have laws that correlate with the book and the Bible and God too. Like someone said earlier that in a country that they're able to kill their wife, right?
Yeah.
So
Can
in
I ask
in
what
America, that's
what
murder.
you're referring to?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, what
I was just curious what religion you're referring to.
for
Like when
we're
you say
talking
the
about.
Bible, you say the Bible, like you said the laws correlate with the Bible. Like what religion are you talking about?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm Christianity. Sorry, the commandments. We'll just say like the commandments. When it comes to like, uh,
Oh, murder, steal,
murder,
stuff like that.
steal, like those types of things. Like those things, like do not murder, all of that. Um, I think it's nice that we have that. But like in other countries, if you are Christian and your thing is the commandment is do not murder and you're able to murder your wife, are you coexisting? Or and is that moral going to, like you said, are you going to perceive that moral differently versus growing up in America where murder happens to be wrong and you see the morality of it from that perspective? Does
Yeah,
that
because if you grow up in a society where like taking things from people is the norm, and then we grow up in a society where taking things from people isn't the norm, and we would say, hey, it's wrong to take things from people, and the other society would say, no, it's not, because that's how we live. Then who's right?
because
Uh,
whose moral ground are we really living by?
yeah.
So I think that goes back to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that goes back to coexisting on a surface level, right?
Right.
Because I'm saying, like, okay, if for whatever reason I knew that Jeffrey Dahmer was killing and eating people, but I met him at the grocery store, and I'm like, and this is just an example. He tells me, "Hey, I kill and eat people because I don't think it's wrong." And I mean, obviously, in reality, I'm gonna be like, I'm calling the cops, right? But if he tells me, "Hey, I kill and eat people because I don't believe it's wrong because that's my belief," and I see him at the grocery store, in my mind, I'm like, "Well, hey, that guy kills and eats people. That's wrong because I know that's wrong. Where I'm from, that's wrong." But I'm gonna walk by him and, hey, how's it going, Jeffrey? Because we're
Yeah.
coexisting on that surface level, you know. So that's just the way that I just keep coming back around to that personal, uh, personal way of life, I guess. You know, and it can even be something. It doesn't even have to be, something that drastic. It could be like I like at church or Catholic, the blood of Christ, you drink wine. I guess I don't know if it's actual like alcoholic wine
You breaking up? You
or
breaking up, Damien?
if it's. Can you hear me?
Now it can.
All
Yeah.
right. So I was saying, like, I don't know if it's actual wine with alcohol in it or if it's just, normal non-alcoholic wine. But how do we know as well, how does the Catholic community know that if it is actual wine with alcohol in it, like they're giving it to everybody, not just adults, they're giving it to adults, kids, men, women, everybody. Now, someone else could be like, hey, that's got alcohol in it. Why are you giving it to kids and teenagers? And
Mhm.
or personally they're gonna think that, but if they see a Catholic at the store, they'll be like, oh hey, how's it going? But they're not gonna sit there and be like, well hey, you give alcohol to kids and teenagers, so you're wrong, because
Yeah.
it's a person, it goes back to that surface level, and then your personal opinion on how on how you're gonna coexist with other people.
So Damien, would you say like certain things are uh kind of like on a personal basis? So like, I mean, I'm trying not to use like extreme examples, but um, so anything that's like something that you would say is wrong, like, would you say that it's like objectively or absolutely wrong, or just in your opinion wrong, but it can be right for someone else? I mean, I'm not really talking about surface stuff, really, because um, you know, but I'm like, Samia brought up the Jeffrey Dahmer thing. I think it's really fascinating. So, like, I'm just gonna guess, Damien, that you would say eating people is wrong. I'm just gonna guess that you would say that's wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah.
So like, if if uh, if another society uh, is eating people, is it wrong for them too?
So it goes. The way that I think about it is like a tribe in the middle of the Amazon. You know, they will, and I'm not saying that all of them, or but they've said that there's tribes in the middle of the Amazon that are cannibals. They eat people because they fight over territory and whatever, and they don't know anything else besides survival,
Hmm.
right? So if I went over there and said, hey, you can't eat people, that's wrong, because I believe that's wrong, they'll probably kill me and eat me because, they want to survive. So I can't,
So
I
like, is it
personally
is
say,
it wrong only in the United States? I'm not saying literally, but like, if there's a society where like, hey, this is what we do, and not everyone like even may agree, but it's just what they do. Like, would you personally be like, no, that's still wrong, or like, is it okay for them to decide, hey, it's right for us?
um, it's a hard question to answer because I feel like if society asked me to do something that
Oh, you breaking
I
you
know
breaking up
I think
again.
is wrong. Can you hear me?
And now we can, yeah.
Okay, so it's hard to answer because if another society asks me to do something that I believe is wrong, I would hope that they would feel the same way in, if it was vice versa. If I ask them to do something that they believe is wrong, I think it should be that, like, well, we don't do that, so you kind of gotta, you know, uh, kind of gotta agree to disagree. Like I don't believe in that, so maybe I won't do that.
I think I got something to say. Um, can everybody hear me? Okay, so I think it really comes down to, I know we're talking about these, like examples. Let's kind of like touch on the in between. I guess like we're talking about these things on this other spectrum. Like let's try to narrow down an example of everyday things that happen. Like we all work, right? Let's kind of think of a example at work where like you felt like you coexisted and then you felt like you didn't coexist. Like, so sometimes I think it's all about the extent of the predicament or the situation we're in. How bad is it? How drastic is it? How's it going to threaten your beliefs? How's it going to threaten your family? Something like that. It comes down to whether you're going to coexist or not. That's kind of what I think about it as. But here's something like, um, I don't know. I don't think I can use that example. I'm not gonna bring up that example because I still think that's kind of, the spectrum is still kind of far. I want something more simple. I mean, I kind of explained my situation, right? Do you, when I went
Hmm.
to the coffee shop, is that coexisting? Am I coexisting because I, you know, didn't do something that I should have done, like, I don't know, act out of emotions, or or did I just kind of conform to my environment when I went into that coffee shop? I don't know if everybody heard my situation, my scenario, but
Yeah.
basically the coffee shop was Disco Death. That was a name, but I don't know. I just want to go in there and check it out. And I always like, like we're saying, seeing new things and seeing different perspectives. But I wanted to challenge her and ask her a question, but cordially do it, you know. But
Yeah.
in my example, and I
Hmm.
decided not to purchase anything that associated with Satan. Am I coexisting or am I not? Like, I want to know someone's opinion on that.
Um,
Oh, Jackie.
I don't. Yeah, we couldn't
oh,
hear
Jack.
you, Jackie. No.
Now we can hear you. I bet.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. Because I added your
Oh,
phone
okay.
back to the stream.
Why are you kicking me out?
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
I said, I think the simple fact that you walked to it, even given the name, that, I mean, just because you didn't purchase it, you still went out of your way to try to hear her out, even though she didn't, really go into it the way you might have wanted it to. I think that's definitely coexisting. I mean, you were trying to get another insight, so.
Yeah. What if something else was on the cup? Like, is there anything that could be on the cup that would also be like not acceptable to you guys? Like, is there something that could be on merchandise that's like, oh no, I'm not getting that? Like,
Upside down cross.
okay,
Like I was like taking photos for my friend, and they wanted to go to an arcade bar, and all along the way there was this other bar, and like we went downstairs into this bar, and there was like upside down crosses and um, very like demonic pieces, and I just kind of like sat there for a second, and I was just looking around, and I was kind of fascinated how like this existed, but like 5 minutes in, I just looked at him. I was like, listen, like, can we leave? Like, I know I'm photo shooting for you guys, but this is very disturbing for me and my faith. And I didn't feel like I wanted to even, like you said, give them my business because of what they're portraying. But like I did go initially into the bar, like you initially went into that shop. So yeah, I would be coexisting. I think that is in a sense coexisting. But then on the other side of it, if you're allowing one bar to coexist like that with upside down crosses and all that, and then you allow another bar to do that, or like songs and stuff that do this, like, are you just like turning the other direction when you're coexisting, or are you coexisting again, allowing that to happen because it's their religion? And what Joseph said earlier, like, I think he said, everyone lives, or you do that whatever makes them happy, so you're doing that. But
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Is accepting or allowing something the only way to coexist to you guys? Like, it's like, and then I think you would say, I'm interested to hear what you guys would say, because I think I'm gonna have some pushback for you guys. So do you think accepting and allowing is the best way to coexist?
I could say yes and no.
Okay, so why yes and no?
Because, I mean, you're not going to see, I mean, at least I hope not. You're not going to see people walking around with the shirt that has the swastika on it, you know?
But so like,
I mean, even if you go to,
should you say something to them, or should you coexist by just not saying anything to them?
well, I think you should, because it's not like it's not like it's a religion, or like it's not like it's something that has to do with faith. It's like, why would you wear that when, well, one, Nazis don't exist anymore, you know, and two, it's like, you're not, you weren't there, you know, you can't say that you believe or live like a Nazi would, because it doesn't exist anymore. So I think that kind of goes with, like, yeah, you should say something, and if they get offended, you know, you got to make your point and say that's not a real thing anymore. It's not like it's somebody wearing a cross. Like, I'm not going to go up to somebody wearing a cross and say, well, you can't wear that because that religion doesn't exist. Like, that does, but a Nazi doesn't exist. A real Nazi doesn't exist anymore, is what I'm trying to say. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like it's something that you could sit there and go to like a church and be like, oh, you know, we're here because we're the religion of the Nazis. You know, you can't go to a club and be like, this is only a Nazi club. You can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What would you say to like the religions or that are out there that do have a more like violent kind of approach? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of beliefs out there that are like,
So
we
I
take what
met,
we want, we do what we want. Like, for example, Ryan brought it up, but like I know like a lot of people think like, oh, the devil doesn't exist, but there's a religion like called Satanism.
right.
Uh, like would you feel the same way to say something to them if they had like a devil shirt on that says kill all people that don't follow Satan?
So I met a guy that is, or was, is, I guess, Satanist. And And I asked him, I did say something to him. I said, why? Because he told me he read the Satanist Bible or the Satanic Bible, and I was like, why? And I'm not religious. I'm not by any means, like a big religious person. Like I believe what I believe, and even then, I was like, why? And I thought he was gonna respond with, because Satan and yada yada yada, and kill kill kill. But the things that he told me, I was like, okay, I heard him out, and I didn't sit there and say, well, now I'm gonna become a Satanist, because obviously not. But I was like, oh, okay, well, I see where you're coming from, but I'm not somebody that will fall into that. So it was kind of one of those, like, and he was like, this person did not dress a certain way, he didn't act a certain way. He grew up Catholic, but somewhere along the lines, he decided to read a Satanic Bible, and that's just what he believed in. And
Yeah.
I was, I don't want to sound like it's right, but I was okay with him believing in what he believed in. You know what I mean? Like, it
Sure.
wasn't like I was gonna believe something like that, but it was just like, okay, well, that's what you believe in. I don't believe in that, but you're still not, I'm still not gonna treat you any different.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
good.
mean, so like when it was back to wearing a swastika and wearing a satanic symbol, well, as a Catholic, I grew up, you know, we were taught to believe that the devil is real, so it's kind of like, okay, but the whole swastika thing, that doesn't exist anymore. That's not a real thing anymore. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah. I seen Jackie in there siding with Becky. Uh, I want to hear some more from Becky. So what I don't know if that made sense in my reply. I actually think any law that's made is is a moral position. I don't think a law and morality can actually be separated, because when you're making a law, you're saying this is what you should morally adhere to. So I actually don't think you can separate the two. I want to hear your case for why you think you can separate the two. If I was understanding that correctly, like I said, I'm not the smartest, so I don't know your guys' thoughts on that. Not to try to sidetrack, but I just thought that was interesting. Like I guess for me, I don't. It's hard to disconnect the two. Like, I mean, there's obviously laws against a lot of things. I don't understand how it could not be a moral thing when making a law, at least from the lawmaker's perspective.
I was
I
siding with
don't.
Becky on the coexisting part for Ryan. I hadn't read
Oh, okay, okay.
your whole conversation yet.
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
I do however think though, I think that I think we have really no choice but coexisting with others, you know? I
Mm,
think there's always going to be pushback regardless. I think people are, especially if they're very passionate about things they believe in, will always try to push that upon others or try to persuade others, to have the same mindset. But um I think in the end we have no choice but to, because like how Ryan said, at work, I have, I'm sure all of us have acquaintances, not everybody's our friend, but we have to get along with certain people because it's life, we have to go to work, we have to, go get our oil change or go to the store and pick up
yeah,
milk, and you might not like the cashier, you might
that's
not
true.
like, somebody at the store, but you still, I mean, you can't just go around and stick to your own world. You have to sit there and communicate with others and get along with others. So I think there's, in the end of the day, I think we have no choice but to coexist, whether it's easy or whether people like it or whether it's right or not. I think it ultimately depends on the individuals themselves and how open they are to hearing and understanding other people's perspectives, which is why I love that we do this, because all of us have completely different views on, especially religion. I know that religion is something that people get very passionate about, and so one of the reasons I wasn't even gonna honestly join tonight, but I decided to jump on because I was curious, not because of that. I just didn't feel like, I felt
I'm
like
just
it was
playing. I'm
gonna
just playing.
steer more towards that, like religion. Like I wasn't really knowing what to expect, and I feel like I kind of mentioned this to Joe. Because of the fact that I was raised Catholic, but I don't claim any religion. I
Mhm.
don't. I kind of like steered away from the Catholic religion, or like any religion really, ever. I think since I was maybe like 12, 13, or even younger, maybe 11. But I feel like I don't have as much knowledge about a specific religion to be able to sit here and like have a battle, a back and forth battle with somebody on like, this is why I believe this, this is why I believe that. Like I am very open to hearing others out, and like I mentioned to Joe, I have been trying to kind of gain more knowledge about all the other religions, because to me, I kind of I don't know. I don't know what I believe in. I know that I believe in a higher being, but I don't know if I necessarily believe that Christian is the right religion for me, or Catholicism, or so I'm trying to see what makes
Can
sense to me.
okay? I really want to ask, and I want everybody to answer the question too. But as Jackie's been speaking and talking, she grew up as a Catholic. So I mean, here's another thing too. Is I was, this is, I guess, don't worry about that. I'm not gonna mention that side note. But what I'm saying is, I grew up as a Christian. Like, you know, I went to church consistently, and I faced tough challenges. I faced times in my life, went to school, experienced things on my own. Like, I've seen good and bad things, but I decided to stick with being a Christian. And there's been many times where I didn't back in the day. Like, there's been choices I made in my life where it's like that wasn't a Christian action or move, but I'm still sticking to what I believe in, Jackie, and I'm deciding to not waver or do anything other than that. So, like, how do I decide to continue to be a Christian? This is what I grew up as you, Jackie, being a Catholic. That's what you grew up in, and that's what you were taught. That's your personal experiences, all that stuff that we know are valid. Why are you not a Catholic? And why are you, why aren't you sticking to a religion? Or why are you kind of like trying to figure out and more open to people that are, of different religions and want to stick with one thing? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And trust me, that's like one thing that I've questioned myself a lot, especially because um before I tried to kind of seek knowledge of other religions besides Christian and Catholic, I had a hard
Mhm.
time, and I trust me, I think I went through a big thing where I was questioning myself over the past, I think, 3 years. I think it started about 3 years ago, where I actually was not like, I kind of said that I didn't really believe in God for a long time before 3 years ago. I didn't really like talking about even the word like God, like I would try to steer away from any religious thing whatsoever. But then you know, I was kind of going through a hard time, and my mom is very, very Catholic. So, you know, she like prays every day, you know, and so she would every time she'd be like, just pray, you know, pray to God, just pray, just, you know, and I started to just pray, and I felt good when I would do it, but at the same time, my thing when it comes to that, this is why I say I believe in a higher being, but I do not want to claim being a Catholic, or I do not want to stick with just that, because I have had I don't agree with some of the things in the Catholic religion. Personally, I don't agree with some of the views. I don't agree with, or not only just that, but I also, growing up, the Bible was something that was kind of like, it wasn't used very much in a good way. It can, if I can say it like that, it was more of like trying to lecture me than trying to, you know, like, I don't know. It wasn't church, and like religion was never a happy place for me growing up. And I think that's what was, which is why I try to seek it somewhere else, or not seek it somewhere else, but want to know about all the other religions before I actually sit here and say, like, I am this. I didn't, with the Christian and the Catholic religions, both, I had bad experiences with both when I was younger. So I, yeah, that's just my experience, and this is why I say, like,
What's
everybody's
funny,
experiences are different. Yeah.
yeah, I've had bad experiences too. I honestly did. Like growing up, going to a Catholic high school and junior high, it was, yeah, as a Catholic, but then as a Christian too, I've seen things but I still stand firm on being a Christian, and that, you know, I mean, for your situation, you said your mom said pray and pray and pray. You know, she believed and she experienced something where that's what she believed in. Just continue to do it. So, you know, it's interesting from both of our perspectives. What choice you decide to make versus what choice
Yeah.
I decide to make.
So I want to just throw this out there, and like, you guys, if anyone's uncomfortable, you definitely don't have to answer. But I mean, I think all you guys know at least a little bit where I am in like faith wise stuff. Um, Definitely have heard stories of bad experiences, and just a lot of pain and hurt from church to family and stuff like that. Um, is there any questions anyone has, like, about like faith, or like I know Jackie had mentioned she was really hurt by Christianity and Catholicism, and Ryan had some bad experiences. What are some of the things that you guys found hard to understand about like faith in general? Like what
I I have a good question.
Can I say
let's go
something
Um,
really quick,
let's
just back to
let's
Joe?
have let's have Jackie say something, and then Damien, you go ahead. And sorry,
all right,
Just
go ahead,
really
um,
Jack.
quick to that. I geez, it's about to go away from my head. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Um I What was your question again? I just completely lost what
My
I was.
question.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so my question was basically like, what questions do you guys have around like faith, but like specifically to your own experiences? Like maybe you grew up and you had bad experiences with like the Christian faith. Like I would profess to be a Christian. I love being able to talk to people about the type of
Okay.
questions that
So
arise with like Christianity and stuff. So is there any
one
questions that
one thing that I find very hard is that I feel like, and what I don't like about sticking to certain religions, especially Catholic and Christians, I don't
yeah.
like that. I feel like it's they're very judgmental.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
It's like you're this way or you're wrong, you know. And I
Mm,
can say this, for example, just because um uh me for example, I've dated women in my life, you know, and
Yeah.
also dated men. And growing up, that was something that was very hard for my parents, especially to like understand, because of the fact that they seen it as wrong, you know, and a lot of people see it as wrong in specific religions. So that's one thing that I don't like. Also, what I in the Catholic religion, I feel like men are very what you say in Spanish, machista, which is like the gender roles, basically like the man is like a king and the woman is like a servant and takes care of kids, and like
Yeah.
it's very true. Like some people really take it like too literal, and like
Mm.
those are certain views that I just cannot let myself like just go along with, you know, because I don't
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
they're right, and I don't think that I should allow a religion to tell me that I'm a bad person, because ultimately I think that I'm a loving person, you know. So I think the judgmental aspect of religions is what really draws me away.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, D- Damien, what are you gonna say? Something? Thanks for sharing that, Jackie. Before Damien goes, well, I really uh appreciate how Jackie's able to have these conversations and stuff, and I'm so thankful that she even shared like her journey, how she's came a long way, and even though me and Jackie would see differently on like faith and stuff, we have great conversation, and I think that's really valuable, and I think like it's really good and encouraging to see that like that doesn't stop you from having these type of conversations. And I think both and everyone on here does a great job of not being like offended and things like that. So shout out to you guys. But Damien, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess my biggest question is when it comes to faith and religion, and this
Hmm.
is more of a question for myself because I don't know if anybody could really answer it. But it's like why why do I question religion so much? Like I've had people tell me, this is the way, and whether, doesn't matter the religion, but I've had people tell me like, hey, this is the way and blah blah, and I'm just like, okay, but why? Like when it comes to Catholics, I went to classes to get my first communion and to get confirmed and all that. But the whole
Yeah.
time I was like, why? And then I got to a point in my life where I was questioning it, like to that point of, I'd have conversations with people and I would say, okay, if God is real, why doesn't he strike me with lightning right now? You know, like it, like I'm dead serious. Like that
No. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that's always been my thing is why why do I question it so much? But then at the same time, you know, it's like I feel like, oh, I shouldn't do this because of my religion or because of what I was taught.
Hmm.
So I guess that's my biggest thing when it comes to religion is like, yeah, I'll go to church, if my parents ask me to go to church, yeah, I'll go to church. If
Yeah.
my fiance asks me to go to church, okay, yeah, let's go. But
Yeah.
when I hear the priest talk and say this and that, I'm just like, okay, but why? And then there's been other things like why did if there's a God, why did he let my friend get killed? If
Mm.
there's a God, why did he let my dad go to jail? But then
Mm.
it's like then talk about personal experiences. It's like, okay, I'm asking all these questions and then something happens to me and I'm like, holy shit, do I have to become like a big believer now, or do I ask why did that happen to me? You know, I had a situation where, I ended up in the hospital, and when I was out cold, I don't know, I can only hear dogs barking. And so when I woke up, I told the nurse, I said, "Where's the dogs?" Still being on medication and stuff, still being kind of loopy. I'm like, "Where's the dogs?" And she's like, "What dogs?" I'm like, "Well, when I was asleep, I could hear dogs barking."
Yeah.
Well, years later, I'm talking to some dude, and he's very religious. He's a Christian, very religious. And I told him that same story, and he's like, "Dude, you need to go to church because those were the dogs of hell." And I'm like, "What?" So it's just always been that why, like I'm stuck in the middle. It's like either I do believe or I don't believe.
Mm-hmm. I think.
I,
Oh, go ahead, Derek. And
I
then
don't think there's a bad. I don't think it's bad to
question.
question why. I think no matter what your belief system is, if you don't ask why, you're not going to grow, right? Like, so I don't really think that it's a bad thing that you're still like searching, because I feel like our whole entire lives are going to be like that, right? Like, just always, searching for why things happen the way they do.
Yeah.
And so I guess I don't see that you're in a bad place right now. It's just like, and I don't know how to answer this. You're asking then, okay, where do I go from here? Right? Like, I have these questions, and, why things happen a certain way, but I don't know where to go, right? And I don't have an answer for that. But I don't think asking why is a bad thing, and don't feel like I feel like that's something that, like, you're really concerned about that you shouldn't be, because I feel like that's like a growing. You're in a spot for growth right now, and I feel like that's a good place to be.
Right.
Um,
And I also think that um I also think that there's just so much that goes into religion. Like, even just with the Catholics, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna sit here and bash the Catholics, but there's just so much that goes into it. Like growing up, you know, my mom. This is a great example. My mom said to us, "If you ever kill yourself, I'm disowning you. Like you're not. I'm not gonna call you my son. I'm not gonna, you
Wow.
know." She's like, because in the Bible it says, if you kill yourself, you go to hell. And so she would tell us that, if you ever kill yourself. Another thing our parents would say is, if one of you ever becomes gay, we're disowning you. We're not going to talk to you. Like that's just it. Because in the Bible it says that you can't be gay or you'll go to hell. Well, growing up, I had a friend that killed himself, and
Wow.
it's like, okay, now my beliefs are like, I knew this guy. I've talked to this guy. I've known him for years. There's no way he's in hell. You know,
Mm.
there's absolutely no way that he's in hell. So it's like now I'm questioning that. You know, years later, I meet my fiance, and she's bisexual, and even saying it in front of my parents, I think they're at an age where they're kind of just like, okay, like they believe what they believe, but they're not gonna say anything. But even when telling them that, they gave me that look like that's not right, you know.
Mhm.
So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna sit here and say that my fiance is going to hell, because I know her and I know her as a person, and obviously I don't believe that she's going to hell just for being bisexual. So it's like those are the questions that you know come up sometimes, like, and then it's like, now I got kids.
Mm.
The Catholic Church says that you have to baptize your kids when they're babies, because
Yeah.
if they die before they get baptized, they go to hell.
Right. Right.
And how am I supposed to sit there and believe, knock on wood, knock on glass, that if one of my kids dies before being baptized, they're going to hell? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't baptized my children, and that goes into a whole nother topic. But I haven't done it
Yeah.
because I'm on that line of yes or no, and
Right. Right.
I just don't think that it's a priority. But then, my dad will come up to me and be like, "You need to baptize those kids," and yada yada. And then, her parents will come up, "You guys need to baptize those kids." And then I want to sit there and be like, "Or what? They're gonna go to hell?" You know, like
Right.
you actually believe that a innocent child is gonna go to hell?
Right.
Is where it comes down to,
Yeah. Well, I could definitely tell you that uh, from the Bible, that's definitely not the case. That your children have to be baptized to be saved. But also, I just want to throw something out to you guys, especially in terms of the different worldviews. So, I've been studying this type of thing for quite a while. So, like, from my understanding, from what I know in terms of other faiths, I don't know like as much as I do about Christianity, obviously, but I feel like I know a decent amount about a lot of the other popular world faiths. There's probably stuff out there that I haven't heard of, obviously, but um, so I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. So, from my understanding, is every faith, every worldview that is a faith besides like atheism and stuff like that, is portraying and teaching how we would get to God, like how do we get to God, right? Um, so I know Jackie had mentioned like she heard a lot of like from Christianity of like you have to do this, 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 or the what did you say? The king dominant thing, and the woman is like slave type of whatever. That's definitely not what the Bible would teach. But also, what I understand the difference to be with all the other religions is you work your way to heaven. So you have to do good things. You have to like you had mentioned, like someone mentioned, like praying all the time. You have to like do these things, and then you'll be good enough to go to heaven. But actually, the message of Christianity is that the work has already been done. So all other like that I know of, all other worldviews would say do do do. Christianity actually says done. So I just would love to hear like your guys' thoughts on this, like if this would be a possibility to consider. So in Christianity, before you even get to, and I love to talk to you guys about whatever question you have, but like before you even get to like, which is wrong though, by the way, like it's not a king and queen slavery thing. But before you guys like get to those type of things and like baptism and stuff, I think it's important just to like understand, I guess, if you haven't heard it before from someone who's a Christian, to put it this way. So like I said, the work has already been done, right? All religions are like, how do we get to God? How do we get to God? But in Christianity, the work is done, and it's done by God Himself. So just as brief as I can, it goes back to what we talked about with there being a creator, right? So like God created us, and we're here, right? And as the story goes, like you probably heard before, like we didn't listen to God. We do things wrong. Just like the first people that were created and even us. We like all could admit, man, we all do things wrong. Like we do. And like that's okay. And it stings a little bit to be like, wait, I do things wrong. Like I'm not as good as a person as I thought I was or am. But actually Christianity says you're not a good person, but there's good news. There's someone who is a good person who's perfect. And he lived a perfect life and he died for all the things we do wrong in him, his life that he lived, his death, and he died for all the things that we do wrong, right? We trust in him that his life, his sacrifice is good enough to go to God. And that's it. It's not like I have to work, I have to like do these good things. I have to make sure that I'm doing every single thing right. If I don't baptize my kids, like, oh man, they're not gonna be saved. Like that's
Yeah, it's
definitely not
already been done on your
what
behalf.
like that's not what Christianity teaches. Um, and I think it's very difficult to understand, especially like family members and friends. Like I have I don't remember their name, but I was having a conversation with someone sometime, and I can understand this perspective, man. I really can. She's like, I'll never believe in God because my sister died without believing in him. And she said she knew that her sister died without believing in him. And she's like, well, if it's true, then she's not going to be with God, and that's why I'll never believe in God. And I really can understand that perspective. Like that's super like hard to wrestle with and stuff. Um, but I but when you actually understand the message of the gospel, which it is offensive and it kind of stings at first, where it's like, well, what do you mean? Like I'm not this amazing, great, good person? Like, what do you mean I'm not good? And but God is good. He's the only one that's in terms of good. When I say good, I mean like if you look up, I think if you look up good in the dictionary, it might say like moral perfection, right? Like no one is morally perfect. I mess up every day, right? Um, so basically, that message is like the work has already been done. There's not anything you have to like do or live or be up to the standard to get to heaven. And I know like there's probably been a lot of hurt in the past of like this, do. But I think when you get into all those details, I think it just kind of goes back to like who said, right? So like if it's true that God created us, and if it's true that He said do certain things, it's sort of like, well, He would be the one that would have the right to tell us what to do, just like sort of like how our parents can tell us what to do growing up, right? So I think where we wrestle with it is like, well, I don't want to do what either God would say to do or forget God, anyone. Like I don't want to do that thing. I want to do what I want to do. Like I want to sleep around with as many women as I want. And like that's the thing. Like you can do it if you want to. But it doesn't mean that it's right to do it. But you definitely could do it. But what I think is so interesting about like what I think is a more fair picture of Christianity is like God is not forcing anyone to like obey him or listen to him or adhere to him, right? Like we all have the freedom to go do what we want to do. Like you can do exactly what you want to do, but we're bound to this world anyway. Like we're already created, we're already here. Like something's gonna happen after we leave here. I think something's gonna happen after we leave here. But yeah, just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on that. Like on you don't have to be a good person. You don't have to like earn your way. You don't have to like law keep, if you will. And that the like the at least in terms of Christianity, the message is that the work has been done on your behalf. If that makes sense. I don't even know if that makes sense or if it's like, oh, that just sounds absolutely crazy. Like we were created, you know what I mean? I mean, it's definitely like packed with a lot, but I think as you begin to like make sense of anything, I really do. Even before you get to like, I know what God is the right one, if you will, but like, I think it really makes sense to even think about on a faith journey. Do you even believe that we were created? Like, I think that's like foundational. Does that make sense?
I think we at least when it comes to going back to like what Jackie said about Christianities and Catholics being judgmental, uh,
Oh yeah,
I
they are too. Yeah.
I totally concur to that. And I think I've even fallen victim to it in some cases because I took on the role of God. And I think we tend to do people ever religious because we're trying to quote unquote save them. They're like, well, your kid didn't get baptized, he's going to hell. I'm sorry, respectfully, who made you God and told you that they're going to hell? Respectfully, who told you if you date a woman that you're going to hell? You are not God. Therefore, you do not know what's in that person's heart, whether they're sinning in that type of nature or not. And I think that's where it comes down to that bottom bar where we want to do good and we want to save everyone. And then they're like, well, you're doing this, so you're going to hell. But it's like, you're not God and you don't know that actual person's heart. And when it comes to those things, it can be very hard, I think, as a Christian to portray the love that God has given me to somebody when it goes to those topics of how a person feels and what they believe, like how they perceive it. And I think feelings can be deceitful, and we tend to like find truth in how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel that, and if you're told, like in the Bible, hey, you can't do this, this, and this because of this, then you're basing that feeling, and so you go into, but just mainly like you're playing the role of God. I kind of lost my train of thought, but being that judgmental person, and then going into what Damien said about his questions and how he's not understanding like the level of God. Uh, I think we tend to comprehend by comparison or examples. So how can you comprehend God if he does not compare to anything that you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even he describes in the Bible, I am who I am. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean by I am who I am? And so now you're like, you don't want to blindly follow him. So then you go back to how I feel. And I'm sure, Jackie, why you know there's a higher power is because you feel it. You feel somewhere, you don't know what that looks like or how it's described, but you feel that, and that is a truth to you. And we're trying to comprehend what that feeling is, and kind of we're trying to compare God on a level that we understand him by. But there is no comparison to God because there's only one God, and he is who he is, and that's how he describes himself. So it really does go like, well, how do you follow something that you can't understand? By your feelings and by your truth.
Yeah. What's that face for, Joe?
I'm hearing something. What's that I'm hearing?
I don't even see. Is
Oh, it sounded
Damien is
like
even here?
some country
Did you
music.
just leave?
It sounded like
Damien.
some country music. Like
It could be my. It could be. It could be
that's
me in
Jackie.
the background.
She playing. Oh, okay,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay. Damien's back now. It's like, um. So I think the biggest thing, right? Joe. Joe. He said it the best is that, I know you've heard this verse, John 3:16. It's all about the Son, that was sent. So the fact that we understand, and the fact that I understand that there's only one way to God, and that's through Jesus, understand that God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. I understand that there's eternal life, but also there's happiness on this earth. And that's what works for me. And because I know it works for me, why wouldn't it work for someone else? When I trust and believe in, like Joe said, my creator, I know that I've fallen on bad times, hard times. I still know that I have to cling to something. And then those other things that I cling to, such as alcohol, whatever it may be, that didn't get me anywhere. It really didn't. It, like, we're all kind of saying the same thing. It's Samia Samia said that it's what you feel in your heart. Like, if you know you just kind of have to find that balance for you and understand if you're gonna be on that line or if you're just gonna choose. And for me, choosing one thing is less confusing and it makes sense to me. And that's really how it is for me, is that Jesus Christ can wash away our sins, wash away, and we have that opportunity to be able to live another day. And whatever feels great to you, try to stick to that. And it's yeah, it's tough to kind of decipher the people dying in your life that you feel like doesn't deserve it. But here's a question for you: is I was a premature baby, right? I was premature, and I was only 2 pounds, and there was a potential. It was two things. I wasn't gonna make it. Neither was my mom. Or if I made it, there would be some issues and complications. What does that mean for my situation? You know, um, for me, I think that's just something, part of me that um, it kind of brings me back to my foundation and back to step one, is that I was given a life and it potentially wasn't going to happen or occur. So how can I use this the right way, this life? And why are we here? I don't think we're just here just to live. And there's a purpose, and we have to be human beings, and that's to not follow the flesh but follow in you know God and what we
Yeah, I think
believe.
I think too, like, it's important to note, in my opinion, I think no matter what, like with the coexisting, no matter what worldview people adhere to, I think everyone can agree, like, we're poor representation for any worldview that we hold. Like, we all mess up. We all, like, and I think that's especially where, like, church hurt comes in, because the fact of the matter is, like, all people who would say like they're Christian, they do not live perfectly. Like, they could be very, very bad representatives for, like, what the faith actually is. And I think, like, that's why, like, I always point to God and not myself as, like, the example. Like, he's the ultimate example, and, like, I'm not the example. That's why he is. Like, I'm gonna let you down. I'm gonna mess up all the time. Um, and then I think any, like, religion that exists, no one of that religion is, like, I think, can honestly say, I'm doing it perfectly. Like, I'm doing it well. Like, I'm rocking it. It's like, nah, like, any worldview, you're gonna fall short of, like, your own standard. So I think, especially when it comes to, like, at least in my experiences, when I maybe have been too, like, hard, or, like, um even, I can't think of the word, like, maybe I've been too um like, imposing, like, my beliefs, if you will. I'm sure I've been like that before. Um like it's because I'm just not that great. Like I fall short. I'm like I'm not the great example of what is good, and that's why I think it only makes sense that there is someone that is good, like that is that example. And obviously, like if it's God, He exists. He wouldn't do anything wrong. He wouldn't be like, oh, you did something. It wouldn't be like you did something wrong. It's like no, I'm the one that does something wrong. So I think that's the thing too. Like in any worldview, there's always going to be something that you can point to and be like, "Oh, yeah, you preach this, but like you mess up here." It's like, "Yeah, I do." Like, and what's interesting too about like the imposing beliefs thing. Me and Jackie talked about this before, but like, um, I think any viewpoint that you would hold, religious or not, is imposing a belief. If that makes sense, where it's like I believe that this should happen in schools or this shouldn't happen in schools. Like it's all like we all impose something to a degree, if that makes sense. And me and Ryan talked about that before too, where it's like there's with any viewpoint, even like coexist, we're all gonna impose something within that framework of coexisting. We're gonna say, this is how this is how you can coexist the best. This is how you can coexist in the right way with our views, our perspective of how we see things. But I think like I definitely think all religion gets a bad rep for like the imposing thing when I think it's just a human thing. I don't really think it's like it's just the people that believe in God that impose their beliefs. I think everyone does to to different degrees, of course, but oh, I got y'all quiet now. I got y'all quiet in here.
Well, I have a question on the flip side because like we're talking about how we coexist with other people, but like,
Yeah.
how would you want someone to coexist with yourself? Like, what does that look like?
Agree with everything I
For,
say.
for me, it's
I'm just playing.
Coexisting
me,
with Joe right now because we're not saying anything while he's talking.
Yeah, I got y'all like y'all.
for me, it's a respect thing. You know, like you could if I invite you to my house, like I want you to respect me and my family, not in a sense of like, oh, I'm gonna sit straight and like no, just respect in general. That's how I would want anybody to coexist with me. Or you know, uh, there's like people that I've met through my brothers, through my cousins, and they come over to like my parents' house, for example. We do just about everything at my parents' house. It's holidays, birthday parties, whatever. Um, and my brothers know people, I know people, and we have cousins that come over and they know people. And I, excuse me, I've met people that they come over and they're just very, very, very disrespectful. You know, in our family, it's a big thing to when you when you go to someone's house, you gotta say hi, you gotta shake people's hands, you gotta introduce yourself, and even then, like there's people that are, you know, 25, 30 years old and they come over and they're just they don't care. They're just disrespectful. They're like, "Oh, whatever, I'm here." And, we'll offer them a beer or food or whatever and they're like, "Yeah, cool. Yeah," but they're not like they're very disrespectful. And for us, that's like, "Why are you here? What are you doing here? We're still going to show you great hospitality, but why did you take your time out of the day to come here just to be disrespectful?"
Yeah.
I kind of want to say something really quick. So, I wanted to clarify a little bit, Joe, about what I meant about like the king and like servant type of
Oh, yeah.
thing, because
Yeah.
I think I might have just like said it not very.
Oh,
So
no, you good. You
it's
good.
just my experiences in the Hispanic culture. It's a very common thing
Yeah.
where the man, like the masculinity in the household, the man, you know, and I feel like religions such as Christian and Catholic in the Hispanic culture, at least from what I've experienced.
Yeah.
A lot of people use religion to justify their actions, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's also another thing that I don't agree with. Um, uh, and then kind of going back to Ryan too, like I get where you're saying that it was easier for you to just stick with what you already know, and it in your life it has correlated with you, it has helped you out, or it has guided you. Um, I don't feel confused. I don't feel lost. I feel like yes, I know there. I feel yes, like there's something, like there's a higher being. I believe that there's some a higher being, but and I can say this not claiming any religion. I am. I think at this moment in my life, I am the most at peace as I have ever been. And there was a time in my life where I actually like just a few years ago when I was kind of going through a rough time and I started praying like my mom said and stuff, and I kind of actually started more than how do I explain this? I started trying to get back into like the Catholic culture, like trying to, you know, find guidance in that way. And what I found myself was honestly, I started to get scared because at the time I was dating a girl. And I started honestly feeling like, you know what, if I don't change
Mhm.
my ways, I'm going to not end up in the right place, you know? And so that's kind of what also steered me away. You know, it's that this is why I say I am very at peace because I've had my experiences, but I am also at a place in my life where I am willing to learn and hear others out to try to, you know, I don't feel confused, and I say try to figure it out because I do believe in something, and I guess to other people, I feel like they find something that makes sense to them. To me, at the moment, I don't feel like I need to find something to make it make sense. You know, I feel like I feel something, I believe in something, and that's enough for me. I will say that I pray in the way that I want to pray. So does that make sense? I feel the freedom to not be restricted to a religion, but at the same time, I feel like I do devote my, you know, a certain part of me to um a higher being, you know, in some ways.
Mhm.
So I you know, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time I feel like people shouldn't be pressured like with religions. That's why I think it's very why I say we can coexist, because if people are just this open with each other as we are now, you know,
Mm.
life can
Yeah.
be a lot smoother for people, but um
Mm.
I've just been I've at least been able to go through things that have opened my eyes, that have made me this way. I will tell
Yeah.
you, if this was me a few years ago, I probably would not sit here and be as open to like hearing you guys out and stuff. But because of my experiences and everything, I am able to sit here today and hear everybody out, and also kind of, you know, this does give me kind of another insight, which is good because if I didn't come to the podcast today, which I really wasn't going to, um, I was gonna try to watch it later on, but if I didn't come to the podcast today, I wouldn't have been able to share what I did and get the feedback and insight that I was able to get from you guys, although we have different perspectives maybe or different outlooks on things. So
Yeah.
Could I so I
I
have
love that.
something in my life that I'm kind of going through, and I want to hear like uh Jackie, like with your life too, and like even with Ryan and Derek, all you guys, like, so it goes to coexisting. So uh I have two friends, and they're both they date each other, and their relationship is absolutely beautiful. Like, I feel the love with them. I see the happiness with them. Like, I almost understand it and I get it. And like you said, you're at peace with it and you're not that. As a Christian, I know that that part of their life isn't the right way, but I feel when I'm around them that they're meant for each other. And I feel when I'm around them that they make each other happy. And I see that, and I'm actually a part of that. They are talking about marriage, and at one point they talked maybe about, the one girl asked me maybe to be like kind of help with the proposal. I guess it goes exactly what we're talking about, coexisting. Like, they're they're my friends. Like, I love them so much, and I love that they're happy, and I love everything about them. But is it my feelings that I have to compromise because of what God says? Or am I accepting that that's just who they are as people? And should I partake in it? And maybe you guys don't have the answers, but I just want to know, like, kind of what direction would that lead to, and all that. Like I said, like, their relationship's absolutely beautiful, and like, I feel like that's what they're supposed to do.
Can
At
I
the same time,
I
I'm
got.
conflicted.
Before you go, Jackie, I just gotta say, y'all are so dope for even having a discussion like this. I'm gonna let you finish, Jackie, but like to Jackie's point, this is seriously one of the most dopest things to me, that people can come together and literally talk like this. Like, this does not happen. So that's all I want to say. Like, this does not happen. It's super dope, regardless of what people believe. Like, to Jackie's point, if imagine if the government actually did this, we'd probably be a lot better off, right? Like, if they actually sat and talked and was like, yeah, I don't agree with this. And it's just, man. Anyway, go ahead, Jackie.
So to your question, why, if you were to be accepting of it, or what negative effects or what negative impacts do you think that will have been on your life or your religious beliefs? Like, why do you think that you can't be accepting of it? How does it affect you?
So, and then this is where it's like gets hard. I'm still one of those like newer believers, quote unquote. Like, I've had God, but I'm still working on like where scripture backs it up and everything. But I would say we are called not to condone, or maybe not condone is the word, but support like anything that's going to lead someone away from being like a believer of God. So when they talk about their relationship and I'm a part of it, like, that's fine. But I don't ever say like, oh, you guys are getting married, like, you should get married, because that would be going against what God says is truth and what God's word is true. So therefore, if I'm a believer and a follower of Christ, then I would be contradicting myself if I'm supporting
But
the marriage.
people do on the daily anyways. There's no good, there's no like strictly good Christian, is there? Like, regardless, you still make mistakes on the daily. So
Mhm.
why is accepting somebody else's being in somebody else's life that doesn't necessarily impact you directly have to be a negative impact on your religious belief?
Okay.
On
Yeah, and this is why I wanted to dig in, because I'm
get what I'm,
confused.
you know,
Yeah.
like, I, at least that's also like exactly what steers me away from um being stuck to a certain religion, just because of, yeah, I've dated guys and girls, and I say I'm bisexual, so I don't know how I can claim being Christian or Catholic and then sit there at the end of the day and be like, I still am attracted to girls, but I'm also attracted to guys, because in the end of the day, I like, am I really gonna be a true Christian or a true Catholic? I don't know if I can sit there at the end of the day and say that with pride and joy, knowing that deep down inside I feel a certain way against those scriptures, or
Yes. Yes, because I feel the love for them and I want to support it so much. But it talks about like being a servant of him. Yeah, like being a servant of him and like uh following what he says, and sometimes you're gonna do things that you don't want to do because of him. But like again, that's exactly what you're saying, is like I feel this, and yet here this I have this belief, so I want definitely more input. um
So I got something.
okay.
Um, for me, when it comes to that type of relationship, I guess like friends. For me, I believe in like law of attraction, but then also I know that, you know, whatever you decide to be around, sometimes that can either impact you in a way, um, or allow you to, just kind of like when it's close to you, like when, like us talking, right? You know, I think it's good to see so many different perspectives and all that. Um, but then again, too, is like, you know, the whole thing about coexisting right now is how are we going to somewhat, uh, I guess I would say for me is like, let's just go back to the law of attraction. Is I'm experiencing as a brother. My sister has been with a woman for many years, so I'm also kind of not really focusing on how do I accept that. You know, it's just, for me, it depends on like what level it's on, that relationship. For me as a Christian, it's tough for me to have two gay friends or two lesbian friends. That's just, it's abnormal for me. So that's just kind of how it is like, um it's just, I just don't want to put myself in that situation because um I don't know how it could affect me. That's just how I live my life. Is I believe in the power of words. What you say and what we're all saying on this podcast means a lot. And it's projecting things. So like even my actions and my choices I make, it's going to project a certain, um, thing. You know, the music I listen to is going to project something. So it's kind of like I have to make a conscious decision whether I'm going to, like you said, you may have to have levels to it. How much am I supporting this? How
let me
much?
let me ask
Yeah,
both of you something.
yeah.
All three of you, because Joe, I know you're religious too, or whoever is all religious in this. What
Oh
your
well, wait.
what your child? No,
I'm
no, no,
getting some
you're in
food.
this.
I'm getting
You're,
some food real quick, so I'm out of it. I'll let
let,
y'all keep going.
I'll ask you when you come back.
All right,
So, okay, so
keep going, keep going.
are other relationships. Relationships, friends, sisters is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you have a child, and your child comes to you and says, I am this way, and this is who I am, and I can't, even if you try to force me, this is who I'm gonna be. At that point, how can you say that you have to accept it at a certain level, at a distance, or do you not accept it at all? I
So I
mean,
think I think, yeah, this was a good show, y'all. Yeah, this was really good. Thanks for coming on, and I'm, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
You're
I'm gonna
killing.
finish. I'm gonna finish making my taco bowl, but anyone can go ahead, and I'll jump back in as soon as I'm done.
Okay.
Almost done.
So I think the biggest to answer your question is, I think you need to love, like truly love them regardless of the circumstance, right? Like an unconditional love. And I don't know if like, and that's kind of one of the things I've noticed is as we've had these conversations is that if the child doesn't like experience that or feel that, then they're going to grow up like feeling that they've never been good enough, right? So like that's hard because it's like, okay, what does that unconditional love like look like, right? Especially if it's something that you've never experienced. I don't exactly know where I'm going with this, but I think being able to like showcase that like, hey, I'm here for you, I'm here to listen, I care about you a lot, allows them to open up to you, right? Like it allows you to coexist with one another and show that like, hey, we do care about each other, you know. And even though I don't know exactly what you're experiencing or like how maybe how you feel or how to help you in this situation, like I'm still here for you. And in some instances that's all it like really takes for them to like feel that comfort, right? It's just knowing that someone's there for them. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything. That's all I have for right now.
So I think going back to, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Samia.
Yeah, I try to
Okay.
put the little asterisk like
Yeah. um, I don't think that it's like a matter of supporting and thinking that you're going against something. I think it's a matter of you've known them for, I'm assuming, longer than what your situation is with your church, I guess.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was wondering that question too. Yeah, he's asking, did you decide to become friends with him after you converted or before you were
Yeah.
converted?
So I would say that I've always grown up with God. Like I got baptized at 12. All this, I wouldn't say that I started like, I would definitely talk about like, I would say that I was a believer and I knew God, but my relationship with him didn't get like deeply, deeply involved until about like 2 years ago. But I've known these people. I have two friends, separate friends that are both they're both gay and they both are talking about marriage. But the one that specifically I'm talking about is uh, that I've known them for almost a decade. And I knew them separately before they started dating each other. But at what point, when it goes back to loving someone unconditionally, and you're saying you're there for somebody, at what point do you stop being there for somebody because you're not going
Because
to
your views,
coexist?
yeah, because
You're
your
not going
views
to
are different than them.
yeah, like when it goes back to like a child's a perfect example. Like, well, I'll be there for you. But okay, well, what if their girlfriend or boyfriend is, because we have to realize, like, realistically, your relationship with a significant other is your life. So if you're there for someone else's life, because now that you're one, if you're there for that life, then you're there for the other person's life as well. You can't just say, well, I'm there for your life, but then I don't condone your relationship with that person. You're kind of saying, well, then I don't condone your life as an individual. So then at that point, like you love them, yeah, but is that love enough to, you know what you feel me? You know what I'm saying, guys? I don't know.
So I guess for me it would be more of a do you understand me? Do you understand my beliefs? Like you might not agree with my beliefs, but you understand where I'm coming from. So like if I was in that situation, I would tell my friend like, "Hey, you know what? Like do what makes you happy and I don't have anything against that, but this is my belief and I'm sorry, you know, not I don't want to be like, you know, mean about it, but you got to understand where I'm coming from." You know, and I think that in that friendship, in that
Right.
relationship, you know, they should be able to say, "No, yeah, I totally get it. I understand." And it's pretty much no hard feelings. Excuse me. And I mean, I think that's what it would boil down to if I was in that situation. And I know it would probably be hard for me, but I've met other people that, you know, for example, one guy that I worked with, uh he's a Jehovah Witness and he didn't believe in celebrating Christmas or New Year's or Halloween or birthdays, and it was kind of the same thing with me. With me, I was like, "What do you mean you're not taking your kids trick or treating?" And he's like, "Well, that's just what my religion doesn't allow it." And he told me, "You do you, and I respect that, and I hope you have a good time. But me personally, I'm not gonna take my kids trick or treating on Halloween." And that for me was like, well, at least he told me kind of straight up, you know, kind of just told me straight up, like, "Hey, this is what I believe, and I have nothing against your beliefs, and I hope you have a good time," and that's it. So I mean, that's kind of a smaller scale, but I think that's what it would boil down to in the end.
Yeah, I guess I just
I
like
still want to hear on the child's like I would want to hear from
oh yeah.
about if you guys had a child, what are your thoughts if you have a child and they really come to you and say that? Would you have the same idea or perspective as in relationship, or what are your
So
So,
so with you, Jackie, I would say like for me, I'm kind of right where you're at, like in that viewpoint where I would say I would accept them and like talk with them. And I think like it goes back to what Joe said, like, can we coexist at an optimal level? And especially if that's your child. I don't know that answer.
So
yeah,
my
if it's my child, I'll still love them no matter what. That's a whole different, like, that child, honestly, obviously, my wife and I, whatever we decide to do, it happened. I made that choice. I brought this child into the world. And when you have a child, you're supposed to love them. And if you don't love them, that's going to be very tough on them. And you're going to see what their life turns out to be if you don't love them and actually accept them for what it is, but still, like everyone is saying, respect where I'm coming from. Like, I feel like when Samia said it earlier, like us coexisting, um I guess to what I think you were just kind of talking about, like to what extent, I would say, like with my child, like, I don't know. It just depends that there's still gonna be boundaries. If it was a guy, it would be different too. It would be boundaries that I would say you shouldn't cross. You shouldn't do this because, you know, this is what I feel is what I believe in, and this is what you believe in. But there's just certain boundaries that we don't cross, and yeah, that's how I pretty much feel about it. We just got to respect each other.
So I have two kids, and my fiance asked me that question one time. She said, "What would you do if your daughter, came up to you and said that she was lesbian, or if your son came up to you and said that he was gay?" And the way that I put it to her was like, that's fine, you know, for me and the way that I was raised. It's the way that I was raised is not the way that I want to raise my kids. So for me, it was like, my parents, when we were growing up, like, if you even did anything that looked gay, or in their mind was gay, like, let's say I grabbed one of my cousin's Barbies, like, it was an ass whooping, like you can't do that, and I think that went back to, the Catholic mentality and all that. But, I told her I will never, never ever do that to my kids. Like, and even now, and he's two, and there's times where, he'll grab my daughter's Barbies, or, she'll put fake makeup on him or whatever. And, I'm like, they're just playing. They're kids. They don't know anything. Like, they're just playing with toys. But that's what I told her. I'm like, that's how it would be. That's your choice. That's what you want to do, and that's cool. That's fine. Just make sure that you're educated, and you can have a educated conversation when people ask you questions that they don't like, things that they don't understand. If somebody asks you, why are you gay, or why are you a lesbian, like, make sure you can educate them and not look like they're educating you. Does that make sense?
Jackie, we don't hear you. At least I don't.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
couldn't
now
hear
I
her
can.
either, and I was
My
confused.
bad, my bad.
No, you're good.
So, I just wanted to kind of touch base on what Anon mentioned right now, because I feel like I am at peace in my life currently because I connect with what Anon just said. I have been striving to love people unconditionally, and not only that, be more open. I started kind of trying to not let things that I are out of my control affect me in negative ways. Also, try to understand people more than getting frustrated because we don't see eye to eye, and that has really brought me so much more peace into my life than sitting there trying to persuade people my thoughts and my views. I have found that I am very much more persuasive when I am able to hear others out and also express myself in the right way. So but at the same time, I like what Anon said, loving unconditionally. I think um kind of goes back to it all. I mean, how can you say if Jesus did sacrifice his life for everybody, how can you say that um having a gay friend or two lesbian friends is wrong? Or, like Ryan, why is it different that you would be so accepting because you birthed a human? You'd be more accepting over for that child that you help create rather than another individual just because they're not a part of you or a part of your life. Because you mentioned that it'd be difficult for you to have, you know, like a lesbian or gay friends or whatever. I mean, I think to a certain extent that's one of the, you know, there's a lot of things that draw me away from being religious because of things like this. You know, you can sit there and pick at things, but there's so much that I just cannot hold myself to a religion because there's so many things that I personally don't think that you should commit to. Like, I can't just commit to saying I'm going to be this holy person and you know try to live my life this way. No, I'm going to live my life that way because I truly want it, not because I'm trying to do it for religion or to prove myself to others or to do any, you know, I'm not doing it for anybody else or for another purpose other than to live my life the best way that I believe I can live it.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
That's so to your point too. Like, so from my perspective as a Christian, I I'm trying to make this succinct as possible. I am not living in a way that's like, hey, I want to show people that I'm good, that I do things right. How I view it is through the lens of the gospel. That, like, so what Anon was saying. So since Jesus died for me, he died for everything that I do wrong, all the wrong tones, all the wrong actions, all the wrong attitudes, all the wrong facial expressions, just every way that I fall short and offend ultimately him, but also people. Um, so I don't know if this makes sense. So what it comes down to is like, in you can't really escape like I think Damien mentioned it earlier about like the whole baptized in hell thing, but like since he's died for me and he's paid for what I've done wrong, and that I don't have to be punished because he took the punishment upon himself, is that gospel. Um, I live because I'm thankful and I have gratitude for what he's done for me, not in the sense of like I'm gonna show everyone that I'm good or show everyone that like I can adhere to these rules. It's just out of gratitude that which I believe someone who created me, it would behoove me to be thankful to him. Like, wow, thank you for creating me first off before I even try to live a certain way. Just thank you for creating me. And then hearing the message of the gospel and hearing the story and like digging into it, it's like, hey, I live for him because I'm appreciative and not for anyone else's like approval, just simply his approval. Because if Christianity is true and that we die and that we meet God someday, like I'm not gonna meet him with my best friend. Like Ryan's my dog. I'm not gonna meet him with Ryan. I'm not gonna be able to say, "Hey, didn't you see how good Ryan thought I was?" Like none of that matters. It's only what Christ has done. So to Anand's agape point is like, man, um, I think too is like if God is real and He created us, then I'm not the one who says what we should do. He is the one who says what we should do, regardless of like how I feel. Like, and not even to just like the extreme examples of like, not to say that's a super extreme example, but like not to the just the examples of what if your child, like you know, came out gay and things like that. But I mean, even just anything like, I'll use a small example. So this is funny because a lot of people would say like the Bible doesn't say anything about like how you should drive in traffic. Well, it does in the sense of like we're called to love and respect each other. So I shouldn't like put my middle finger up at someone in traffic, being angry. So it's like I do that not because it like makes me look like a good person. It's like, well, I believe that God created us and He would have for us to live a certain way. And my nature, which Christianity would say is like the sin nature, if you will, we naturally want to go against the things of God that He would say is true. And I think that's where like the debate comes in. Like, well, how do you know what God says, or how do you know if it's true, and things like that. But yeah, like I think a perspective that maybe isn't shown to a lot of people in terms of their faith, religion, is like, hey, I'm not trying to prove myself to people. Like we're not trying to make people think that we're good people. Honestly, like that's really the message of the gospel, that I actually don't think I'm a good person. Like I literally, and I'm not trying to say that for cool points or no, I really don't think I'm a good person. I don't think I'm that good of a person. I mess up all the time. I've lied, I've stolen, I've just done things that are just not good. Like I'm not a good person, and I'm okay with that. Because the message is that there is someone that is good, that's better than me. He's far better than me. He's the example I point to. I don't point to myself. I don't try to like say, look, I'm living better than you. Like I don't think I have a really radical view on this, and I think most people, probably even on here, would disagree with me. I'm only gonna say it. You guys might look at me crazy, but like I know the Jeffrey Dahmer thing came out and all these other things. I actually don't think I'm better than like the worst people that you guys can think of. I literally don't think that I'm better than them. I think I might be better off, but like I don't think I'm better than them. I don't think I'm like, look at me, I'm better than them. I think I'm not that great of a person. I think I've done things that are wrong against the Lord, and I need His forgiveness. Like Anon talked about forgiveness. I need His forgiveness, and that's what it comes down to. Like I'm so happy to be alive and living, but I need His forgiveness, and that's it's not to like win cool points with the world, especially like if anything, like wanting to be a believer is like the world doesn't like that. Like they don't like that. Like people hate you for it, hate us for it, and even can hate people who are not believing in anything. But I just wanted to kind of share that like at least my heart as a Christian is not to like make people feel bad about what they believe or what they don't believe, or that I think I'm better than them because I'm a Christian. I actually think I'm the same as them, that we all make mistakes, we all fall short, and that I just need God. Like I don't need people. I need God. So oh, there's Becky.
I think for me,
Becky
you
didn't answer
know,
my question though. If people knew.
it's I think, you know, there's the funny thing about it is that, I mean, everything that a lot of people choose to do, it it is in, you know, it is in the Bible. But you have that right and you have that choice to label yourself something. You know what I'm saying? And you know, necessarily, I label myself as a Christian, but I don't agree with everything that Christians do. So honestly, we're all kind of bending the rules in a way, you know. But like Joe said, is that, you know, the good thing is that we do have salvation. We do have this opportunity to um, make it to wherever it is we want to make it to, and that's because of the faith, the grace that we have, and then, you know, every day the mercy, because we're always thinking things could be worse, right? And that's just how I am with my life, is I know things can be worse, and that's the mercy. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, Jackie, I answered your question. I don't know if I did or not, but um, yeah, I think I did.
Your turn, Joe. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I agree. I agree. He's calling people out. He needs to be called out.
Right?
wait, what?
And I'm very curious because I'm right. Like
What would you do
I'm
if your child came to you and said that they were gay?
I have no problem answering this question. I don't duck nothing. Um, so I was gonna ask too. Was the answers that were given to you, did that like answer your question? Because I think we kind of went to like
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if you were looking for I would love them. I think you kind of know that, right? Like
Yeah.
are you asking like what exactly are you asking so I can answer that? Right?
Okay, my thing is
Are you
like,
saying what would I do? Like I don't think you're asking would I love them. Would that be
no,
right?
that's not what I'm asking. No, of
Okay.
course, but I assume you would all love your children regardless, right? My
Hmm.
thing is like, how would you how would you, I guess, handle that situation? Maybe, you know, if they're really young, you might have hopes that, you know, they'll come to a realization, you know, it's just a phase, you know, whatever. Maybe I
Yeah.
can kind of guide them through, you know, this or whatever. But what if they get older, they're in their 20s, they decide, like Samia's friends, I want to get married. Dad, will you know, I want you to be at the wedding, like that type of stuff, or bring somebody over, you know. It comes more to, my thing is like, I I grew up, my parents found out that I liked girls when I was in middle school. And it was not a good experience. You know,
Hmm.
I actually stopped talking to, I didn't talk to my father for a long time in my life. Not just because of that, but that contributed to everything. And that I actually kind of out when I was 17 because I felt like I was not accepted. And I was willing to give up my entire family because of
Mm.
the fact that I didn't feel like I was in the wrong, because I know in my heart what I felt was not wrong. Because how can you say that me feeling love for another person is wrong? That's where I couldn't, like, you know, it's hard for me to understand that you know, the religious perspective of those things. And I think especially my parents had a very hard time coming around. They were not accepting whatsoever.
Hmm.
I think it really took me distancing myself from them. And they actually ended up coming around, and now they're accepting of it, and they, like, more accepting than I ever thought they would ever be. Um, which is why I bring this question,
Yeah.
because I
Okay.
went through it from being a child to now
Yeah.
being an adult. And trust me, I never thought, especially my father, would ever come around. But
Mm.
he is actually, like, if I think about him now and how he was when I was a child, um, I just could not. I If you were to tell me when I was a child that my father would be how he is now about the whole situation, I would not believe it. You know? So this is why I'm curious,
Okay.
especially because of
Yeah.
the religious aspect. Of course, you're gonna love your child, but how would you handle it? Would you would you actually be accepting of it, or would you just kind of be like, okay, let's see where this goes, or try to persuade them or try to guide them with your religious beliefs? Or,
Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That
This
that
this will
I.
answer this will answer my question too, because like that's where I'm at. Like I would go to my friend's wedding. Like that's
Yeah.
where, like, I want to be supportive. Like I would, if they asked me to be their bridesmaid, I would want to say yes. But is that not following him
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what
I.
you're.
Okay. I
Thank
think I
you.
get it now. Yep. So I think I have to answer just. I think I have to answer a couple things and maybe a third thing. I think Jackie, you had said like how, I think you might have said how do you know, or like how does someone know like what is like wrong, if you will, or like whatever what God says. So to answer that question, um what I believe and what I've come to understand, um so my standard of right and wrong is not like something that I made up, something that I like can say, oh, this is what I think is right and wrong because I decided. So what I believe is that, obviously, I believe in Jesus, but a part of that, in part, meaning I believe that Jesus existed, so that he existed as fully God and fully man. So he came down and he actually lived, which even atheists believe that Jesus is actually did live. Now, the claims of who he says he is, obviously, it's debated amongst people, but I believe that God has left his word with us. So I believe that the Bible is a revelation from God. I believe it's His revelation to us that communicates to us about Him and also communicates about how we should live. Um, So I think that's like something to understand of where my basis comes from, like the foundation. So like however I would decide to do anything of anything goes back to what I believe God says in his word. Because if I'm left to my own devices to just like um, think what God would say or what he says, I have nowhere to point to but just my experiences and my thoughts. Um, so his word. But I think that's something that is hard to accept for people who might not identify with religious, because it's like, well, what do you mean the Bible? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean his word? Like, it's strange that you think God would have a book and it's been interpreted and translated and all that type of stuff. But this is going to sound crazy. But if you think about like how we went to school, we went and we have science books, we have history books and all that type of stuff, like documentation, like it was a normative medium that you would have. I mean, throughout life, we all have books, right? So it's not that strange to me that God would leave like his word with us of what he would say. Um, so that's like my standard, as
Are
long as it's
you
interpreted correct.
dodging my
As long as
specific question?
yeah, but I no, yeah, but I just wanted to like have that make sense, that it's like I'm
Okay.
not going off of like my own thoughts or whatever. So I'm going off of his word, the Bible, as long as it's interpreted correctly. So to my other point about like when I said earlier that when I die, I believe I stand before God. I believe I don't stand before him with anyone else. So just like anyone else makes a decision, they have to stand before God should they find out he's real or not. And they'll have to face whatever God would say. So I live my life with my family. So I have a son right now. I love my son more than myself. I would die for my son. I would give up my life for my son. I would go to prison for my son. We answer that question. We love him obviously, but I believe even more than my son, I love God more than my son. More than my son. I have to face God when I die. I don't have to worry about my son. I don't have to face him. My job, what I believe, is to build my son up to know who God is, because I don't believe that we're just here and then we die. Like my son's gonna grow up, he's gonna ask, why, daddy? Why this? Why that? He's gonna ask, why do I have to do the chores? Why do I do this? Why do you talk to mommy like that? Don't you talk to why do you do this? I'm gonna have to tell him why. And the things that I'll tell him about is what I believe God has said, because I love him and I want him to know God and I want him to know that there's a life after this life. So to your specific question of what would I tell my son, should he come and say, I'm in a relationship with a man, I would I would probably start to ask questions to try to draw out and just learn more, right? I would ask him questions. But I would tell him, as a follower of Christ, I would tell him what I believe God says about things, but I would tell him about that from God's word. I wouldn't say because I feel, because dad says so. I would say I believe that God has called us to live a certain way. I believe that God has called us to have romantic relationships um, with a male and a female. I would tell them what I believe. So in terms of like, I think you might have asked like, would I um, support him, or like, I don't know if that was the right question. If that was like, would I support him? Was that the right question? So it again, like, not to, I'm not trying to duck anything. It depends on what you mean. Like, what do you mean by support? When you say support, do you mean like a does supporting mean agree with him? Like, so if I believe in God and I believe God says to live a certain way, right? Does support mean, okay, even though I believe God says this, I'm going to say, I'm going to agree with what you're doing? Do you mean agree, or do you just mean like not bother or like not
No,
preach at him all the time?
I don't think that. I mean support, as in the same support that you would give if he was with.
Okay, yeah, okay, I got you.
Like, you're, even if you don't like the girl, you may not like the girl if he's dating a girl, right? But
yeah,
I mean, it's being supportive of their choices and of his life decisions. If he decides, let's say they're in a relationship for a while and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I want you to meet so and so,"
yeah,
or even just Christmas, having them together, like treating them as like how Samia said, as a whole. You don't just deal with that one person. When people are in a relationship, you deal with them as kind of as the duo. They're a couple. They do, you see them both together. Would you be respectful of the relationship and be supportive of it?
Yeah, or
yeah.
like in my instance, like, would you go to that wedding?
Right. So I think in my mind I would be respectful, but I don't think maybe you would maybe see it as respectful. So possibly. So like I I wouldn't not tell them what I believe. Like I don't think that's necessarily disrespectful. Like I wouldn't not tell them what I believe God says about marriage. Like I believe I believe in God's word. He talks about marriage being between a man and a woman. Like I believe that. He obviously has the choice to do what he wants, just like I do. I believe that he faces God on Judgment Day, just like I do. He's not going to have me. He's not going to have his friends. He's not going to have the guy who he would maybe want. He's not going to have him. He's just going to have him and God. So my job as a father and someone who loves the Lord, and of course, obviously, it's subjective to people, but my job is to point him to Jesus in all that I do, no matter how hard the conversation, no matter how painful it is, no matter if we disagree, no matter if he ends up hating me, because I do believe that the best way to love him is to show him what what God says about him, not what I say about him, not what, like, it's not about me. It's what God would say, because ultimately I don't decide. So I would yeah, the question of coming over to dinners and things like that. Yeah, I would not say you can't come over here. You're not coming to family things. Of course, he can come to family things. How I feel like I would respect though is I wouldn't preach at him every time that I seen him. We would have a good conversation. I'm sure there'd be one time. I mean, I'm human, so I'm sure we disagree. It'd get fiery. I'm not gonna sit up here and say I'm just gonna. I guess how I put answer it this way: I wouldn't conform and just like do whatever he wants me to do. Like I'm not just gonna say whatever you want, that's fine. And apart from him wanting to marry a man, I wouldn't do that with anything. I wouldn't let him just with anything, right? Like I wouldn't just say, okay, son, whatever you want, fine. I'm just gonna do whatever you want, because now he will become my God if I just follow what he says and just do whatever my son says. I'm ultimately gonna do what I believe God would say to do, and then when I die, we'll work that out. But I do know one thing: if Christianity is true, I don't have to give an account to my son. I don't have to give an account to the world. I only have to give an account to God. And I'd much rather be in good standing with God than with any human who I'm not going to be accountable to after this. But I would love my son to the best of my abilities. I can say as a believer, I would fail. I know I would fail. I know I would offend him, because I am offended when there's things in my life that I have done that someone has pressed in on me and said, I'm not sure this is quite of God. I've been offended. So I think I'll know what that feels like. But in terms of like support, like, yeah, like I would, man, my son is always going to be welcome where I'm at, no matter what. But I'm always gonna tell him the truth, because I think lying is worse. I'm always gonna tell him what I believe the truth is, no matter how hard it is, um, because I love my son, and I am banking, and I don't mean I do believe Christianity is true. And when I say this, I'm going to use it in terms of like I'm banking on it being true. I'm banking on it being true. I'm banking on my son knowing who the Lord is. I'm not risking my son not knowing who the Lord is for us to die and find out, oh, it really is true, and he is who he says he is. I'm willing to take that risk. I'm willing to offend my family members with the conversation, but I'm also willing to radically love them though, by showing them, hey, I'm still going to be here with you, even though I don't agree with what you're doing, but I'm not going to ignore you. I'm going to love you. But to Samia's question of like, would I, would I like attend the wedding? I think was that a question? Would I like attend the wedding, or was the question would I officiate the wedding? Was the question
Attend the wedding, because you
attend the
see
wedding?
that a lot. Like, say you have
Yeah,
that conversation with people and
yeah.
all that, and they're like, "Nope, I love this man," or like my friends, like, "I love this woman." It's like, okay,
Hmm. Yeah. It's a little bit harder. Like, I think that, and you can tell me if this is foul play, but uh, if 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 this happened, I would have a conversation with my son, and I think it's very likely that he would be offended. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I think he'd be offended. I think it's possible that he would ask me not to come if I were to say, I don't think God would want you to do this. He might say, well, I don't even want you to come. But if you're assuming that he's okay with me believing how I'm believing, and he's like, Dad, I want you there, right? And it really depends, because I as God is my witness in front of you all, I don't think it would be the most loving thing for me to do to then embrace my son. And I hope you guys can understand my heart in this and where I'm coming from. I'm not condemning my son, like if that was the case, but I don't think in good conscience before the Lord, like with anything else that I think God would say would not be of God, that I would embrace my son, um, in terms of like, I'm so proud that you're doing this, and I don't mean to sound like a religious mean person. So I hope you can hear my heart in this, and it goes back to the message of the gospel, that it's not just that God arbitrarily is like, don't do certain things, don't do certain things. It's like God says that we all fall short, meaning we all sin. So he died for sin. So anything that we do that is not of God, that he would say, right, it's called, like, we would be sinning. So I don't want to celebrate my son not following God, if that makes sense. So I'm not positive that I would attend the wedding. Now, if he then decides, well, since you're not going to attend the wedding, I don't want to have you in my life, I think I would be fair to say that's a little bit hypocritical, because now we come to a crossroads. If you're going to say, hey, I'm holding to this view of you should automatically come to my wedding, and I say, son, I love you, but I love God more, and I believe God has called us to a different standard. This goes back to coexisting. Would To you, Jackie, would that be a sufficient way to coexist? I'm not forcing my son on anything. I'm not forcing him not to go through with it. I'm just telling him from my heart what I believe God would have for us. And he, or whoever would be expressing that, yeah, I don't think that's true. So there's two people who have different views. What would be the what I would do? Would that be sufficient in coexisting, or would that not be sufficient? And then why? Is it only sufficient if I do whatever my son wants me to do, or is it sufficient that I can express to him, hey, I believe this, I love you? Like, do my words not matter, or is it only my actions of whatever you say, son, I'll do it, even if I believe it goes against God?
I think as long as you're not imposing your views and trying to persuade him to go with your beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
that is sufficient. I
Okay.
think as long as,
Can I ask one follow-up question to that after you finish? Sorry.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Um, so should it be true that Jesus is who he says he is? Like, should it be true? Then would it actually be wrong for me to tell my son what he says?
No, because this is the way that I see it. You guys keep explaining it as like, in your views before the Lord, it would not be good for you to condone certain things, right? But
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
God, so how are you condoning it? You're
Okay, so that's
you have no control of this other individual's life. Yeah, you helped create this individual, but ultimately they are in control of their life in the end. So how is it that you can say you're condoning this? You're not his God. You know,
oh,
you're not, I mean, just because you're a participant, just because you're there, that means that you're condoning it, that you're allowing this individual to go against God. I don't think that that should be, that's one thing that I feel like it's kind of like a guilt thing. It's like a guilt
yeah,
with religions that they try to guilt you into, persuade. Like, ultimately, you could stay here and say that you try not to be like, imposing on impose your views on other people or your religious beliefs on other people. But ultimately, if I feel like if that's what you see on certain things when it comes to your religion, that you can't be accepting of others, or you can't be um does it make sense what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like,
Kind of like, so again, I think we have to define. So you're defining accepting to some standard that you're appealing to. You're appealing to some standard to say this is what accepting is. Would that be right?
what do you mean?
So when you say you, if you're religious, you won't accept what he's doing. Like, what do you mean by accept? Because when you say accept, you're appealing to some standard of acceptance. Like,
Yeah,
where does that? So I
yeah.
mean, like, where does that come from? Because in my mind, it like what I'm trying to do is remove me from the equation in terms of
Mm.
like I'm not the one that has to accept it. I don't have to. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm saying it's not about me. I'm trying to remove me from it. It's not about me accepting it or not accepting it. And to your point, like I have no bearing on his life. I'm only here to tell him
But
what
you're
I believe.
trying to
Oh,
remove
sorry.
yourself when God isn't here. We're talking about coexisting. So God is not going to coexist with us. That's why
So
I keep going back to it. I get
okay,
where you're coming from, but you're trying to bring
yeah.
a higher being into the equation of coexisting. God is not going to coexist with us.
So what I would say to that is though, like, by what standard would you say that God is not here with us? Because how I would see it is that he is here. He is with us.
But you're bringing the whole religion aspect to it. Like, you're bringing your religion, you're imposing your
Right.
views and your specific religion to this whole coexisting. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, okay.
The fact that you like I mean, accepting as in being able to not impose your beliefs, being able to come to for example, I guess I don't know.
To your point though. So like, what views are you bringing to the table though? I'm not saying it has to be religious, but like,
Yeah.
why would you say the way you're viewing it would be like more correct? Like, why would you say that? And like, would you also see that as like I'm imposing my beliefs?
I don't think I am correct, but I think that I don't try to impose any views on anybody because I don't have a specific religion that I base everything on. Does that make sense? I feel like when you have a specific religion, you try to base everything on that. You have a foundation that you
Right.
go back to a certain thing, which is God, or which is the Bible. Um
Yeah. So yeah, Derek said, yeah. So what do you? I guess yeah, that's a good. Because I actually don't feel like, um, I don't feel like I would be imposing on my son by just simply telling him what I believe
no, I don't.
God has said, and in the same way that like someone who would just agree with whatever anyone does, that's a form of like affirmation or saying, hey, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is kind of what Becky just said. It's not
Yeah.
so much about accepting, it's just about being about the fact that, yeah, accepting everybody's different views. The fact that if somebody, you know, if your son did decide to marry a man, it's not about you imposing your views or him imposing his lifestyle into your, you know, trying to impose for you to be accepting of like homosexuality or whatever. It's just the
Right.
fact of we have different views, but we can still, like you said, coexist, and we don't have to knock each other down just because we see things differently. That's
So,
where
so I guess then I guess I would ask, like, I guess I'm missing like the point of your question then. Like,
my point was because
like
of,
what,
I,
what should someone do? Does that make sense? Like obviously it's a scenario related to a religious perspective, right? So then almost what I hear is like remove that religious perspective from it. But I thought the question was geared towards a religious perspective. Does that make sense?
it is, yeah. Well,
Okay.
my thing is because I feel like there's a lot of people that will not participate or will remove people from their life because they do not correlate with their religious beliefs. That's what I'm trying to say. So like
Oh, okay, okay.
Samia was saying, to what point, like it all goes back to kind of Samia's question where she said, do to what point do you kind of like remove yourself from certain people or distance yourself, I guess, or whatever, because of the
Mm,
fact that their lifestyle or their views do not go with what you see, which is why I brought up the child, because that's what
okay.
and when it hits a little closer to home and it's
Yeah.
not something that you can just, you know, remove from your life or distance yourself that easily, it when it hits closer to home, you have a different perspective. You're not just going to be like, oh, okay, you know, I can just tell them like, hey, I don't agree with your relationship, but it is what it is, you know, have a nice, like, you go ahead and live life the way that it is. We can still be friends at a distance. No, you can't do that with your child. You're going to be in your child's life. That's what,
Right.
why I brought up the whole child and like accepting or not accepting. I just
Okay.
want to see what the viewpoints were, because like Ryan kind of said something about not really wanting to have like uh friendships with people with like a lesbian or gay people, but he said he would love his child. So that's where I was
Okay,
like,
yeah.
why
Oh, okay, yeah,
would
yeah.
you be more kind of accept, or like I felt like it was kind of more accepting for his own child but not for another individual. That's why I was
Okay.
saying.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think that you can still be accepting of everybody's views without imposing and being like, you know what, I can't participate so much in this person's life because they're living a lifestyle that goes against my views. I think that everybody should be able to be respectful enough to be like, as long as it doesn't affect me, or even if it does, I mean, I think if you haven't gone through something and if you have not personally experienced something, you can sit here and say, I would do this or I wouldn't do that. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, just like my father kept saying that he would never be accepting, and now he is. So
Right, yeah. So I think too, like I think it's important, like, for me to say I would fall short of whatever, like, any questions that you guys would have in terms of Christianity, I would fall short of it. Like, I think that's very important for me to say. Uh, anything that's like what would you do in this scenario, and kind of point to like the good, the best Christian or God outcome, I'm gonna fall short of that. Like, I'm not gonna do it well. I'm gonna botch it up. Like, but that's the point. That's the point of the gospel, though. Like, I'm going to mess up. Christ doesn't mess up. He never has and never will. I'm going to let people down. I'm going to let my son down. Apart from the example that we talked about, I'm going to let him down, regardless of what he does or how he lives. I'm going to let him down. But this is why I would always point back to God rather than myself, or rather than like an experience or someone else's opinion. Because at the end of the day, how I view it is like when we die, Like all opinions are out of the window about how we should have lived or what we should have done. If it's true that God exists and we meet him and he's like, actually, it's true. I'm the only one who says what the absolute standard is of what anyone should do. All opinions shall cease. And then we'll be in front of God, and it won't be like it won't be unsure of like what someone should do in life or what they should have done. It's going to be very clear. But I think that's why the gospel is important, and I think it's important like in terms of accepting, right? Because it's like I think we hear a lot of like the side of the religious side needs to accept the non-religious side, but then what about the other side of, hey, I'm non-religious, but I'm going to accept what you say as long as you tell me things that I think God would say to do or not do. I'm going to be accepting of that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Or
Oh, I didn't know my mic was muted.
oh no.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just feel like
Because
when
like it's just I think it's just tough, like it's tough because
it, I think when it comes to the religious aspect of things, you can
yeah.
go and on, which is also another reason why sometimes I steer away from it because
Well, you done great. You done great today.
well, thanks. I appreciate this dialogue. It's been good.
Yeah. Man, I got Becky. You talking a lot out there. I need you to come. I need to come. I need you to cam up sometime. I want to draw out some of what you're saying. I think it's really, really good. See, y'all had some pushback in the comments. I would love to pull that out sometime outside of those comments if that's cool with y'all.
Are you wanting to do this now?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted them to know that offer is extended.
Okay.
It's easier for me to like. It's easier for me to like make sense and kind of understand the flow of stuff because I know we're talking and then I'll look at the comments and I might have missed it, but also just trying to hear more in depth of like what they're saying in the comments. It's just helpful for me to hear people like articulate what they're saying. It's kind of hard for me to understand just simply from the text. So
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think when it comes to coexisting, it ultimately just depends on each individual, honestly, I feel like, because trust me, there's religious individuals that will not be willing to hear non-religious individuals out and vice versa. So,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
and
a big
even
step.
if when it's not religion, like we talked about, I mean, it can be on anything just as simple as like laws or like animals. Some people believe like vegans. Some people believe that you shouldn't eat animals. People believe you should. I mean, abortion. There's a whole list of topics that you could bring up that people have different views on, but I think it ultimately depends on each individual, honestly. So
Yeah, that's good. Well, this has been really fun. This was different right here. I think this is a good example to people of how they can talk about stuff, and it was good. I feel really good. I appreciate y'all a lot. I can learn from each and every one of you. So hope you can hear my heart in that.
Absolutely. I appreciate everybody just kind of opening up and just pretty much not being afraid to speak on how they truly feel. Because I think sometimes the world can silence us, but we can also kind of silence ourselves and be like, you know,
Put that on
let's
t-shirt.
let's kind of like, we just kind of want to filter ourselves sometimes, but it's kind of like it's cool the fact that we're on here, and I know that this coexisting subject and topic is, I think for me it's just on so many levels the coexisting is. And yeah, there's I think there was something I was gonna mention earlier about the pandemic. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna mention. I know someone mentioned earlier. Oh yeah, Damien. He kind of was talking about just really bad things happening. But like, haven't you seen the pandemic and what is it has produced, and kind of like, um, it's crazy things going on right now, and then that's gonna get us to the point of, you know, really focusing in on this coexisting or coexist word that, you know, we're really trying to understand now in this scenario. But once, what if there's another pandemic that comes, another wave of COVID? How are we going to coexist then? What is coexisting going to look like, you know, when it gets to that level, to that next level? So at this point, we can coexist.
Right.
I know it's kind of like, but it's the truth. And, you know, what we do all feel like is near and dear to our hearts is our faith, what we believe in, and our families. You know, for me, God first, and then my family. And, you know, it's just what I believe.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all. If y'all could go ahead and just anything that comes to mind, can y'all just send just right now, like put it in the chat, like put ideas uh, for a topic that you can think of right now. I'd love to get in contact. I mean, for the most part, I know everyone, but I'd love to link up on social media or something with you guys, so I could let you know when there's more stuff going and hear your ideas and stuff and perspectives and different topics that you guys want to talk about. So
What about
you gotta put one. You gotta at
I
least
got
all y'all
something.
before we go. Y'all gotta put something in the chat for me.
I was afraid of this.
Yeah,
Joe,
you
I
too.
don't know
That
what to talk
includes
about,
you
dude.
too, Becky. Ooh, Jackie.
Hey, yeah.
She came with it. Ryan, she came.
Oh, what do we want to talk about?
That was a good one. Wow.
Yeah, those are both good.
Nah, you gotta have a different one though. You gotta have a different one, Becky. Pick a different one.
What about Samia? She hasn't put anything either.
Yeah, we waiting. Come on.
Look at the time. I gotta go. You know, it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, we out
Way
after
past
this.
my
We out
bedtime.
after this.
I agree, but I also need to come up with a subject.
It's all right. It don't gotta be too. You know,
Anything that comes off the top of your head. It could be anything.
anything.
That's the problem. I can't think at this time.
Hey,
Yeah, I
politics,
have so much like in my head about everything because the shared with like
government.
the personal story of like my two friends and just hearing everyone's testimony. It's like this has been like such a big conviction for me, and just being in this chat as like I have been praying for this like for more than over a month, and like
Oh wow.
I have not like received like I've heard people be like, oh, these are hard, that's a hard situation, and then just like walk away from it, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I didn't have any guidance or how what someone felt like about it, and so it's just like that's all. I'm stuck on this. Like I'm like, where do I go from here? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the good part about it is that we wrestled with it, right? Like, you know, that's something that we sat here and we really wrestled with, like, okay, how do we, I don't want to say solve it, but how is there a solution to it, right? And so like that's like a lot of people don't want to take the time to have those conversations, right? Like So I think that's a good thing.
I think like Ryan said, people, in life steers us away from being open and vulnerable. And
Right.
I myself, have, you know, shut up multiple times just because I've been afraid of, just other people hearing my perspective and being like, what the heck is wrong with you? But at the end of the day, you never know what person you might relate to that you never thought you would.
Right.
So,
or you don't know like how your perspective and how your experience can actually help that person in whatever situation they're going through, because maybe you've dealt with a similar situation or a similar story, right?
yes. I agree, Becky. That is one of my biggest things that I always say, and I think I've said this on every single podcast that we've had so far, but everybody's experiences, everybody has different experiences. Everybody has walked a different path. So everybody has something to share to another individual that might help them in some way or another. So I love this. I appreciate everybody for hearing me out. And I honestly, if we didn't have such a good group, I probably wouldn't have been as open. So I appreciate every single one of you guys, and for answering questions and jabbing back at me and whatever. How Joseph,
So Joe, you swinging? I got something right now.
Okay.
Wow, y'all snapping. Y'all snap tonight. Yo, okay, so this the list. This the list so far right here.
I think this is a good conversation to have
Whoa,
because
y'all
we've
going
been
Jackie, we
yeah.
can't hear you.
You said, how does it happen? How do you become straight?
How does or doesn't it happen?
How does or doesn't someone become straight?
Hey, we gonna save it. We gonna save.
I guess we're gonna see.
We're gonna see. We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
I'm ready.
Becky's
we're pulling an all-nighter.
So
no, we're not pulling an all-nighter.
Yeah, you guys got 30. You guys got 30 minutes.
I'm gonna shed some light on this question, honestly, because I haven't been able to talk to my sister. But my sister, she's older than me. She's my oldest sibling. But like she's a lesbian and I haven't talked to her like why, what experiences have you gone through? Like you've had men all your life. You decided to become a lesbian, but now to this day, being a lesbian, she still finds men attractive, or she can say, hey, he's he's I don't know, a handsome dude, or she likes how he does dresses or how his hair is or mannerisms, like things like that. It's like, how does that happen? Like I'm just trying to figure it out. And it's
my only issue with that specific question is I don't know if there's an actual answer. So I don't know how you're looking for an answer for that, because that's why I said, how do you become straight? How did you decide that you were straight? I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's necessarily something that happens.
I can tell you why I'm straight.
You might, yeah.
I feel like it's a conversation for.
You can have a conversation, but I don't know. I'm
just saying we don't have to do it tonight.
Yeah. All right.
But is it like?
Because we've been here for almost 4 hours.
Yeah,
we love it.
You guys have find definitely like.
So here's the question: if you look at the question,
Wait,
how
hold on.
does
Are
or
you gonna get your
doesn't?
sister to join the podcast for this one?
What's-
Are you gonna get your sister to join the podcast for this one? Is the real question.
Ooh. I know that I couldn't have my friends join. I could
Come on now.
Yeah, but
I
I'm not even
could.
there yet. I'm still going to their wedding at this point.
You reckless.
I could propose a question to her. I mean, honestly, yeah, I could propose it. I was tempted to take a picture of a question I asked, and she'd be like, "Oh, okay, I see what you guys are doing. You guys have a whole podcast." You know, I would, but I don't know if she's gonna be open to do so. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good. So when we do it, we can ask the friends that. That's good. That's a good idea. All right, I'll write it down. Challenge accepted.
Oh, all right.
If we're talking about it, we gotta be
Luna's
about
happy
it, right?
Becky just responded. Full
She's ready.
transparency.
Oh, dang. Okay, wow.
Oh.
That's another
Yeah, that's
topic
good.
too.
This
Rape.
is a good topic. Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
said sex, because I feel like sex is just like not just sex out like in marriage and girlfriends, boyfriends, but like sex and everything.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
that, Becky. That's I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to that, and I think this is that's a good topic. I mean, if we can get a good group of people who can actually, two sides to it, I think it'd be a really good discussion.
Yeah, get the two sides is key.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what do you mean about sex? What about sex?
Yeah, that's what it, like just everything about sex. Like especially being a believer, like it even says like you think about somebody in a lustful way, you've sinned, or like sex outside marriage. So even with the boyfriend, girlfriend, or sex when it comes to like the raping or molestation, like I think it's just I don't have I got sex. That's all I got.
Yeah.
All right.
Or like sex with your partner, like how
How to
often
have
is it
sex.
wrong to deny, things like that.
Yeah, that was my topic. All right. I told you my brain.
Yeah,
I gotta go.
That's a whole topic within itself.
One
So.
sex.
Yeah.
Sex, that's the
Got
word.
it.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we got some good ones for next time. I mean,
Yeah, thanks guys.
Who is writing these down?
I got
You
them. We
these
got
all
them.
written down?
wait, you
Yeah.
guys got an hour break, and we're back on.
I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed.
This was good. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know.
Can we do a group chat too of this?
We can't. We can. Would that be cool with everybody to do that? Because I don't
If
have
we do like a topic, like if we do like this topic that we're talking about, like these main people too, like
Yeah.
on social media, then we can actually like plan it too a little bit.
Right.
Have a guided discussion a little bit, maybe.
Would that? Well, how about this? I think pretty much everyone has my number.
Joe, I don't know if I
that's
still
a
have
good.
your number, to be honest.
So is it cool if I just put us in a chat or something, or I can connect? I mean, if everyone has like Facebook or something, we could always do a little group or something like that. But
Yeah.
But
I do still have your number.
Cool.
Joe, do you have my number?
This is a new phone. This phone, my
I
other phone
think
got
I
stolen
think
at a
it's probably
bank.
best to do like a yeah, like a Facebook group chat, just so, or
Yeah.
so we can familiarize our faces with each
Yeah.
other too.
Does everyone got Facebook?
Some days.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you
I
were
think I
answering
got
my
everybody.
question.
Oh, sorry. Let me see. I think I got everyone on the book. I probably don't because this is a new phone that
All right, I will
had to
text you real
reset
quick.
new. Actually, no, I got it in here.
You
219.
still have mine?
Yeah, 219. I mean 291. Sorry.
Yep.
Yep, I got you in here.
Okay, sweet.
Yes, sir.
I'll just text
Yeah.
you my name and my first and last name just in case.
All right. I'm gonna head out.
Cool.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, y'all.
Conversation.
Yes,
Bye.
we're gonna chop it up. Y'all have a good night.
Yep, have a
Appreciate
good one,
y'all.
guys.
Good
Have
night.
a good night.
Peace out.
Peace.